You versus cosmic copy. Imagine standing face to face with yourself, not the person you see in the mirror every morning, but another you, forged by a lifetime of opposite decisions. Picture a parallel universe so close to this one that its atoms nearly brush your skin. On the other side, your cosmic copy lives a life that is both familiar and utterly alien. Every yes you ever uttered, they turned into a no. Every risk you took, they played safe. Every fear you avoided, they embraced. Your dreams, their nightmares, their triumphs, your regrets. What would you see in their eyes? Recognition, envy, contempt, or something stranger? Something that makes you question if either of you is truly real. In the silence between your two worlds, the possibilities stack up like dominoes. Think back to all the pivotal moments in your life. Those crossroads where you hesitated, heart pounding, unable to see what came next. Imagine, at each one, another version of you took the opposite road. If you left your hometown, they stayed. If you forgave, they held a grudge. If you fell in love, they walked away. Their life is the perfect inversion of yours, a living ledger of every road not taken. Now, imagine the moment of encounter. You see yourself, not as you are, but as you could have been. Their posture is familiar, but their scars are not. Their laugh is a foreign song. You know the lines of their face, but every gesture feels unpredictable. You reach out and feel the air tremble with the weight of possibility. Would you instantly recognize this cosmic copy as yourself, or would the gulf of experience make them a stranger? Would you hate them for the choices they made, or envy the paths you never dared to walk? The deeper horror sets in as you realize you are not unique. For every decision you've made, there exists another you who made the opposite. The multiverse teems with your echoes, some broken, some thriving, all watching you back. In some universes, your copy is a hero. In others, a villain. In some, nothing more than an ordinary soul living an ordinary life. If you stood together, side by side, could you look them in the eye and call them me? Or would you feel an instinctive urge to erase them, to assert your own existence as the one true path? Consider the first conversation you'd have. You'd ask about their childhood, only to hear stories twisted by a single decision. Maybe your parents' divorce broke you, but it made them strong. Maybe your first love was a disaster, but theirs was a salvation. You mourn the opportunities you lost, but they despise the burdens they carry. Every word they say is a mirror, reflecting what you could have become if you just zigged instead of zagged. How long before curiosity turns to resentment? How long before you start to wonder if the universe is big enough for both of you? Let's make it concrete. Say you built your life around ambition, sacrificing friendships for success. Your copy chose loyalty over ambition. When you meet, you see the cost written on their face. Deep bonds, but unfulfilled dreams. Do you pity them? Or do you secretly wish you could trade places, feel the warmth of connection you always lacked? Or perhaps you chose love and lost everything in its name. Your copy chose self-preservation, never letting anyone close enough to hurt them. Would you envy their solitude or mourn their emptiness? The cosmic copy is not just a person. They are a living accusation, a silent rebuke, a measure of everything you could have been. But then, a deeper layer, the nature of recognition itself. Would you see yourself in them at all? Neuroscience tells us our sense of self is a fragile construction, stitched together by memory, identity, and story. If your cosmic copy's memories are alien to you, their values reversed, their regrets and victories unrecognizable, are they still you? Or are they an imposter wearing your face? When you speak, does your voice echo in their mind, or does it sound like a stranger breaking into their world? The illusion of selfhood begins to collapse under the pressure of infinite possibility. Now, the real test. What if the universe forced you to choose? What if only one of you could continue, and the other must be erased, wiped from existence as if they never were? Would you fight to prove your worth, plead to stay alive, or quietly accept oblivion for the sake of your other self? Is survival an act of self-preservation, or an act of violence against your own reflection? And in that final moment, as reality trembles, would you feel guilt or relief? Would the erasure of your cosmic copy feel like murder or mercy? Let's go even further. What if, in erasing your cosmic copy, you erase the parts of yourself you've always denied? Maybe your darkest fears, your hidden dreams, your silent shames, all embodied in the other you. To destroy them is to destroy your own potential for change, for redemption, for becoming something new. Or perhaps, in accepting them, in embracing your cosmic copy as a piece of yourself, you become whole, transcending the boundaries of a single life, holding all possibilities at once. Which would you choose? To destroy or to integrate? The paradox is devastating. You are unique only in your own story. Across the multiverse, you are infinite, a chorus of yous, all singing different notes, none more real than the other. When you meet your cosmic copy, you are forced to confront the terrifying freedom and crushing loneliness of existence. You see the infinity of your own potential and the unbearable weight of your own limitations. But maybe, in the end, the encounter is a gift. You stare into the eyes of your cosmic copy and see not a threat, but a partner in existential survival. You realize that your choices matter, not because they are the only choices, but because they are yours. Every regret is a lesson, every triumph a celebration, every loss a kind of freedom. The cosmic copy is not your enemy, but your echo, a reminder that existence is a spectrum, not a point. You are not the only you, but you are still irreplaceable. So the next time you wonder what might have been, what paths you left unexplored, what doors you never opened, imagine your cosmic copy, living those lives on your behalf. Wish them well. Grieve for them. Learn from them. But never forget, in this universe, you are the one living your story, and only you can decide how it ends. Escape room, afterlife. You open your eyes and find yourself in a silent, windowless room. The walls are blank, the ceiling too high to touch. There's a single door, locked, and on a table, a set of strange objects. A clock that doesn't tick. A notebook filled with riddles. A photo of a childhood memory you barely recognize. You don't remember how you got here, but you sense that something has ended. Your body feels light, untethered from hunger or pain, as if you've stepped out of an old coat and left it behind on a distant shore. At first, you do what anyone would do. You test the door, flip through the notebook, search for hidden compartments. You look for a clue, any clue, that explains where you are or what you're supposed to do. There's a puzzle on the wall, a series of numbers that don't add up, a mirror that shows you not as you are, but as you once were. You begin to solve, not because you understand, but because there's nothing else to do. The world outside this room feels impossibly far away, like a dream fading in the light. As time slips by, you start to notice the rules aren't like any you remember from life. The clock never moves, but your hair grows longer in the reflection. The photo on the table shifts, sometimes showing a joyful birthday, sometimes a moment of regret. You realize the puzzles aren't really about numbers or riddles. They're about memory, choice, forgiveness. One task asks you to unlock a box, but the only way is to say something you never said to someone you loved. Another asks you to arrange your greatest failures in a sequence, and only when you forgive yourself for each one does the next door crack open. It dawns on you, slowly, that this is not a test you can outwit. It's a labyrinth built from the fragments of your own life. Every puzzle is a mirror, every challenge a question about who you were, what you clung to, what you let go. You remember your last moments, fleeting, blurred, then sharp as a knife. The pain, the panic, the slipping away, and then this place. The realization blooms inside you, cold and luminous. You're dead. The shock is not what you expected. It's not horror or denial. It's an ache, a longing for things left unfinished, words unsaid, kindness withheld, but also a relief, a sense that this is the final inventory. In this strange escape room, there's no point pretending. No one is watching, except maybe something greater, patient and silent behind the walls. You watch other souls, shadows moving through adjacent rooms, their faces flickering through glass. Some rage and pound at the walls. Others sit quietly for years, lost in regret. A few solve their puzzles quickly, stepping through the next door with a quiet smile. Time is strange here. Days and decades blur. For some, realization comes fast. For others, it takes a lifetime's worth of reflection. You wonder, how long would it take you? How long to see that the puzzles are your own, that escape is not about cleverness, but about acceptance, about letting go of what weighed you down in life? Every clue is a lesson. Every locked box is a memory waiting to be released. When you finally find the last key, maybe it's forgiveness, maybe it's courage, you unlock the final door and step through into the unknown, carrying only what you've learned. And in that moment, as the room dissolves into light, you realize the escape was never from the room. It was from yourself, from the burdens and fears you carried. The afterlife isn't a place, it's a process, a puzzle only you can solve. Coin flip justice test. Picture this. Every court, every conflict, every judgment that once required argument, evidence, witnesses, and human frailty, replaced by a single flawless coin, heads or tails. In this new world, justice is a moment of chance. You stand in front of the coin, knowing your fate is balanced on a razor's edge. The coin is perfect. No bias, no rigging, just the pure, indifferent mathematics of probability. In the next second, everything will be decided. You're told, if we use this coin to resolve all disputes, justice will be instant. There will be no more drawn-out battles, no wars, no vengeance that cycles from one generation to the next. The coin will not be swayed by power or fear, by corruption or politics, by ancient grudges or human error. The rules are simple. One toss, win, lose, freedom, prison, peace, or death, all decided without prejudice. Fairness, in the coldest sense, finally reigns. Would you accept it? Would you let your fate, or the fate of your enemy, be decided in a breath by blind chance? For many, the promise is seductive. The world aches for fairness, for every war that starts because justice failed, for every family torn apart by endless court battles, for every life ruined by a judge's mistake or a jury's bias. There is the hope. Couldn't this be better? Couldn't perfect randomness cleanse the stain of human error? Imagine. No more innocent people condemned, no more guilty walking free because of a technicality, no more agony as justice twists into power games. Just a coin, just a rule, just the end of war. But is it truly justice, or is it surrender? What happens when fairness is given over to fate? You see a guilty man walk away, laughing at luck. You see an innocent weep, condemned by nothing but a flip. Is this any different from the world we already live in, where sometimes the best arguments fail, the best people lose, and the wicked prosper? Or does the coin's perfect indifference only sharpen the pain, reminding us that life, for all its talk of fairness, is always tinged with chaos and chance? Picture the courtroom. A mother, accused, pleads for mercy. A victim's family prays for closure. Both know that, in the end, the coin decides. Heads, guilt, tails, freedom. No appeals, no second chances. In an instant, lives are rewritten. What do you feel, standing in that room, knowing that justice has become a game of fate? Is it relief or horror? Is it peace or despair? Now step back. Imagine global conflicts, the ancient blood feuds, the wars that burn cities and erase generations. What if, instead of armies and bombs, leaders agreed to let the coin decide? War ends. The field is silent. The coin falls. And with it, thousands are saved. Thousands are lost. Does the end of suffering justify the loss of fairness? Does peace built on chance hold any real meaning, or is it just the emptiness of a universe that cares nothing for justice, only for probability? Ask yourself, is justice about outcomes or about process? If the process is pure, but the results are random, can we call it fair? Or does fairness require effort, wisdom, empathy, the slow, painful grinding toward truth, however imperfect? If chance rules, do we lose our humanity, our longing for meaning, our hope that right and wrong are more than just sides of a coin? This is the heart of the coin flip justice test. It asks you what you value more, the peace that comes from abandoning control, or the principle that every fate must be earned, not given away to luck. Would you give up everything for the end of violence, if it meant no one ever truly deserved what they got, good or bad? Or would you cling to the messy, agonizing human search for real justice, even if it means never-ending struggle? In the end, a coin is neither cruel nor kind. It simply is. The universe itself is full of randomness, accidents of birth, chance encounters, split-second disasters. Maybe, by letting the coin decide, we only admit what we already know, that fate is often blind, and justice is always a dream we chase but never quite catch. So, you stand before the coin, heart pounding, future unwritten. Do you let it fall, Or do you demand something more, even if it means pain, imperfection, and a world forever wrestling with itself? The answer will haunt you long after the coin has landed, whispering that sometimes the only thing more frightening than chaos is perfect order. The looping room paradox. You walk through a door, into the same room. The walls haven't changed. The pictures on the wall hang in the same places. The light still flickers the same way above your head. You feel the shape of déjà vu in your bones, a cold certainty that you've done this before. So, you turn around, determined to break the pattern and walk out through another door. But once again, you find yourself inside the very same room. Again and again. Each time, the familiar edges of reality start to blur. The lines between inside and outside, beginning and ending, start to dissolve. At what point do you begin to question if you ever left your own mind? Or if, perhaps, the room was never a place at all, but a construct built to contain you? This is the looping room paradox, a reality so subtle and insidious that you might already be living it without knowing. On the surface, it feels like a horror trope, or maybe a sci-fi mind game, a person trapped in a time loop, forced to repeat the same actions, facing the same consequences, unable to break free no matter how hard they try. But look deeper, and you'll see that it's a metaphor for something profoundly human. A metaphor for the way we can get trapped not by locked doors or physics, but by the architecture of our own consciousness. Imagine yourself in this loop. The first time you notice, you're confused. Maybe you blame stress or fatigue. Maybe you think you've made a mistake. But as the repetitions stack up, your confusion sharpens into fear. You try to remember the last time something truly changed, the last time you saw something new through that doorway. But memory starts to betray you. Is it possible you've always been here, circling this same mental corridor, mistaking movement for escape? The looping room isn't just a room, it's a state of mind. It's the moment you realize you're having the same argument with someone for the 10th time, using the same words, hearing the same responses, and expecting something different. It's the job you return to, day after day, even though it drains you. It's the relationship you can't leave, not because you love it, but because you don't know how to step outside the pattern. It's every old habit, every cycle of thought, every repetitive fear that feels fresh, but is only wearing a new mask. But let's dive deeper. What happens neurologically when you walk through this looping door? The brain is a pattern recognition machine. It craves certainty, and it finds safety in the familiar. Neuroscientists have discovered that the brain literally rewards itself for predictability. Habits, even harmful ones, create neural pathways that grow stronger every time they're followed. That's why you keep returning to the same thoughts, the same worries, the same self-doubt. The room feels familiar, even when it's a prison. Now, let's take it further. Philosophy has long struggled with the question of what it means to leave a place, or a thought, or a life behind. The ancient Greeks imagined the river Lethe, where souls would drink to forget their past lives before entering new ones. But what if you never really leave? What if you only think you've escaped? But in reality, you're stuck inside an endless feedback loop, a Mobius strip of experience where the end is indistinguishable from the beginning. You might ask, if the room is always the same, can you even trust your perception of change? Quantum physics tells us the act of observation can alter reality, but what if the act of repetition erodes reality? If every step through the doorway only leads you back to your starting point, how do you ever know you've made progress? Maybe the world changes, but you remain locked in a personal orbit, circling an invisible sun. Consider the lives of people trapped by trauma. Trauma, in its cruelest form, is the ultimate looping room. The body escapes the past, but the mind replays it endlessly. Flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, cycles of self-blame. Each time the survivor thinks they're walking out the door, they find themselves back inside the memory, forced to relive what should have been left behind. Or take addiction, another looping room. The addict swears off the substance, promises themselves this is the last time. They walk through the door of resolve, only to find themselves, once again, in the familiar chamber of craving, shame, and surrender. Each escape is an illusion. The walls close in. The loop tightens. But it's not just the dramatic moments that trap us. Even the ordinary can become a looping room. How many times have you made the same New Year's resolution only to fall into the same pattern by February? How often do you tell yourself, Tomorrow will be different as you walk through a door into a day that unfolds just like the one before. Life, for most people, is a series of loops, rituals of comfort and fear, hope and disappointment, all circling the same unspoken anxieties. So, why can't we break out? Part of it is biology. Our brains are lazy, our bodies crave homeostasis, but part of it is existential. If you step out of the looping room, you enter uncertainty, the unknown. And for many, the known pain is safer than the unknown possibility. We build routines because chaos is terrifying. Even a miserable loop feels better than the vertigo of freedom. Yet, some manage to break the loop. How? By shattering the illusion that the door leads somewhere new. They stop looking for an exit and start seeing the room itself. Instead of frantically searching for a different outcome, they question the architecture of their own thoughts. Mindfulness traditions teach that the first step is noticing, really noticing what's happening in the room. What are the patterns? Where are the triggers? What stories do you tell yourself about why you're here? Here's an example. Imagine a person stuck in a toxic friendship. They convince themselves every time that the next conversation will fix things, that they'll finally feel heard, respected, valued. But each encounter ends the same way. Disappointment, frustration, guilt. The only way out is to stop expecting the door to open into a new world and instead face the reality of the room they keep returning to. Sometimes, the way out is to stop trying to escape and start remaking the room itself. Or think of a creative person stuck in a rut, writing the same story, painting the same picture, composing the same song, all while dreaming of something new. The loop isn't just laziness, it's fear of failure, fear of venturing into unfamiliar territory. It's easier to perfect the familiar than to risk the unknown. But every breakthrough in art, in science, in life, begins with the courage to see the room for what it is. A loop you have built. A loop you can unbuild. Let's get even stranger. What if the entire universe is a looping room? Cosmologists theorize about the cyclic universe, where time itself may be circular, every Big Bang followed by another, every cosmic era folding back into itself. Some physicists argue that even at the quantum level, reality is governed by loops. Particles appear, vanish, and reappear, repeating histories encoded in the fabric of space-time. Maybe the reason the paradox feels so deep is because it's built into the architecture of existence itself. Now, ask yourself, what is the difference between walking through the door and staying in place? If the outcome is the same, if you always return to the same starting point, does it matter which path you take? Or is the true prison the belief that there must always be a way out? Maybe the point is not to escape, but to awaken, to see the loop, to study it, to understand why you built it, and to finally step outside by changing the way you see. The looping room. Paradox isn't just about physical space. It's about psychological space. It's about the recursive habits of thought that keep us circling, chasing our own tails, running from ghosts we can never leave behind because they live in us. It's about the stories we tell ourselves, that this time will be different, that one more try will set us free, that freedom lies just beyond the next door. But freedom, if it exists, isn't found by running. It's found by stopping, by noticing, by daring to name the room you're in, and by refusing to let its boundaries define you. In the end, maybe the looping room paradox is a challenge, a dare to look directly at the cycles that bind us, to ask why we repeat ourselves, and to recognize the subtle, often invisible ways we hold ourselves captive. It's a call to consciousness, because you can walk through 1,000 doors, but if you never wake up, you will always be in the same room. So, next time you reach for a handle, next time you repeat a thought, next time you find yourself circling old regrets or worn-out routines, pause. Ask yourself, is this the room I built? Is this the loop I'm choosing? Or is there a way, right here, right now, to see through the illusion and finally step into a space you've never seen before? Maybe the answer isn't in the exit. Maybe the answer is in the awareness, in knowing that you can't escape the looping room by running, but by realizing you were never trapped at all. And as you stand there, hand on the doorknob, ready to step through once again, remember, the only way out of the loop is to know that the loop is you. The room was never holding you captive. It was showing you the shape of your own mind, again and again, until you finally see it for what it is and decide to dream a new door. Teleport twin nightmare. Imagine you're standing on a shimmering platform, lights whirring around you, every atom in your body tingling with the promise of something miraculous. Teleportation. You step inside the chamber, the glass slides shut, and suddenly, you feel a strange electric buzz. A scientist's voice crackles through the speaker. We're ready. A countdown begins. 3, 2, 1. In a fraction of a second, the machine scans every molecule, every quantum flicker of your existence, and then you are gone. At least, you're gone from that spot. Because simultaneously, in a laboratory thousands of kilometers away, a new body, identical in every microscopic detail, assembles atom by atom. Your thoughts, your memories, your private hopes and fears, your scars and secrets. All of it appears in this new you. The chamber opens. You step out. To everyone around, you're the same person who stepped in. You remember entering the teleporter. You remember the brief moment of buzzing static. It all feels seamless. But now, let's take a step back. Because what if, in that fleeting moment, the teleporter didn't move you at all? What if, instead, it destroyed the original you and created a perfect copy elsewhere? Who then is the real you? This is the nightmare at the heart of teleportation. The terrifying question of identity, of consciousness, of what it means to be you. It's not just science fiction. Philosophers have wrestled with versions of this problem for centuries, but technology is now catching up to the thought experiment. And the deeper you dig, the more you realize teleportation might be the most horrifying form of suicide dressed up as a miracle of travel. Let's break it down. In the traditional science fiction teleporter, like those made famous by Star Trek, the machine scans you, disassembles you, then reassembles your exact pattern elsewhere. The original body is obliterated. A new one appears. To an outside observer, it's instantaneous. A person disappears here and appears there, no different than if they had walked through a door. But what about the person inside the machine? If you're the one about to be teleported, are you really stepping through a gateway, or are you being murdered and replaced by a copy? Let's make it even more vivid. Imagine the teleporter malfunctions. Instead of destroying the original, it simply copies you. Now, there are two of you, one in the old location, one in the new. Both have the same memories, same personality, same sense of self. But when one looks at the other, what do they see? Not a stranger, but not themselves either. A twin who thinks and feels as you do. Here, the illusion shatters. You were never moved at all. You were copied. Which means, in the original teleportation, you never made the trip. Only your pattern did. This isn't just a technical quirk. It's a philosophical nightmare. If the original is destroyed, is the new you still you? Or is the new you just an imposter, a hollow actor, a ghost wearing your memories like a mask? Imagine stepping into the teleporter with the deepest faith in its technology, only to realize, at the very last moment, that you're about to die. Your last conscious thought is obliteration. Meanwhile, a you somewhere else awakens, thinking nothing has happened. But the original is gone forever. Would you ever truly agree to teleport knowing this? This is where the thought experiment becomes agonizing. Because in every sense that matters to physics, to your friends, to the world, the new you is indistinguishable from the old. It remembers the same jokes, loves the same people, fears the same darkness. Yet, on a gut level, it feels wrong. It feels like a magic trick, like a swap so subtle nobody can see it. Except maybe your soul. Let's dig deeper. Imagine you're standing before the teleporter with a loved one. They plead with you not to step inside. You'll die, they say. No, I won't, you reply, because you trust what you read. You trust the scientists. You trust that consciousness is just a pattern. But what if you're wrong? What if behind every teleportation, there's a hidden corpse? Here's another angle. Suppose every night, as you sleep, you're replaced by a perfect copy. Memories, body, personality, all reconstructed atom by atom. Would you notice? Would you care? Most people recoil at this idea. There's something about continuity, the sense of being the same stream of consciousness from one moment to the next, that we instinctively value. We don't just want our pattern preserved, we want to be the one who wakes up, not someone who just remembers waking up. And yet, Science doesn't have a clear answer. Modern neuroscience suggests you are just the sum total of your brain's activity, its structure, its chemistry. If all those are copied perfectly, perhaps you live on in the new body. But then, why not make 2 copies? Or 10? Which one is really you? If all have equal claim, does that mean your identity is infinitely duplicable or infinitely fragile? Let's take a closer look at some real-world analogies. Consider anesthesia. Every time you go under, your stream of consciousness is broken. You wake up hours later with no memory of the gap. Are you still the same person, or a copy that has inherited your memories? Most people don't worry about it, but teleportation makes the gap explicit. It introduces the possibility that waking up might not be the same as surviving. Or think about how your body changes over time. Biologically, most of your atoms are replaced over the years. The ship of Theseus puzzle, if you swap every plank of a ship, is it the same ship? Applies to you too. Are you the same you were 10 years ago, or are you just the current arrangement of matter and memories borrowing continuity from the past? Now, back to teleportation. Imagine you're forced to choose, teleport, and trust that you will continue or refuse and accept only traditional travel. What if you learn that thousands of people teleport every day with no ill effects? No memory loss, no side effects, no proof of discontinuity? Would you eventually cave, or would you cling to the terror of the twin? What if, one day, you had to escape certain death, and the only way out was the teleporter? Would you do it? The deeper you go, the more you realize the teleport twin nightmare is not just about technology. It's about the very nature of self. It challenges the core of what we mean by survival. Is survival about preserving the pattern or preserving the experience? Is it enough for a perfect copy of you to continue your story? Or does your sense of I demand something more, something no machine can ever transmit? Here's a final twist. Suppose teleporters become as common as elevators. Generations grow up seeing nothing strange about it. After all, nobody remembers being the one left behind, because the one left behind, by definition, doesn't get to tell the story. The world is populated by copies, each convinced of their own authenticity, each sure that they are the real one. What happens to our understanding of identity, of death, of continuity? You might say, it doesn't matter. As long as there's a you to continue, the details are irrelevant. But deep down, there's a primal fear. The fear that when the light flashes and your atoms scatter, you're not moving at all. You're vanishing. And someone else, someone who looks, acts, and remembers exactly as you do, is stepping out, blissfully unaware that the real journey ended with annihilation. So the next time you dream of teleportation, ask yourself, would you step onto the platform knowing what you know now? Or would you hesitate, haunted by the shadow of a twin you'll never meet, the ghost of your own identity, trapped in the moment between destruction and creation? Because in the end, the nightmare is not about being lost in transit. It's about the unsettling possibility that the you who steps out on the other side was never you at all. And in that split second between worlds, the only thing truly teleported was the illusion of self. Infinite puzzle completion. You're sitting at a table with a puzzle. There's no box, no border, no guiding image, just a single piece glimmering with possibility. You reach for it, curiosity alive in your fingertips, and press it onto the table. Instantly, the air thickens. 10 new pieces materialize out of nowhere, spilling across the surface like a silent, colorful avalanche. Each new piece is a different shape, color, texture. Each seems to whisper a new mystery. You blink. Are you still in control, or have you just triggered something ancient, recursive, and impossible? This is the infinite puzzle completion paradox, a metaphor, a thought experiment, and for some, a lived reality. Every action taken to solve the puzzle breeds more complexity, more questions, more demands on your focus. It's the story of every unfinished project, every obsessive quest, every spiraling loop of human curiosity. You thought you were working toward an end, but every step forward opens 10 new doors, each darker, stranger, more unpredictable than the last. The table grows crowded. You try to focus. Maybe if you sort the pieces by color, by shape, by some imagined logic, you'll find a pattern. But every time you join 2 fragments together, click, 10 more emerge, edge to edge, mocking the idea of closure. You begin to realize there's no edge, no frame, nothing that can define where this puzzle begins or ends. Your vision narrows. The table stretches to the horizon, then curls upward, surrounding you. Pieces rain from the sky. There's nowhere left to stand. You might be thinking, this is just a metaphor. But how many times in your life have you tried to complete something, only to discover the goal keeps moving? Finish an assignment at work, and 10 new emails appear in your inbox. Solve one problem, and it splits into 10 sub-problems. Every time you chase certainty, clarity, mastery, life responds by multiplying ambiguity, scattering 1,000 new questions at your feet. Philosophers have a name for this. It's called the proliferation of problems, the haunting reality that knowledge isn't a path to answers, but to ever deeper, branching mysteries. Consider mathematics. You learn arithmetic, then you realize there's algebra, then calculus, then topology, then set theory, then unanswerable paradoxes and infinities so vast they defy human comprehension. You try to solve a famous problem, and in the process, discover a whole new field that no one knew existed. Every step in learning is a step into a maze that's building itself faster than you can walk. Or take science. For centuries, humans believed that the world was made of earth, air, fire, and water. Then, we found atoms. Then we split the atom and found protons, neutrons, electrons. Then we split those and found quarks, leptons, bosons, a whole zoo of subatomic weirdness. And just when you think you're close to the final answer, the standard model splinters. Dark matter, dark energy, strings, brains, the puzzle multiplies. The universe is a puzzle with no box lid, no edge, and every time we solve a piece, reality hands us 10 new mysteries. This infinite puzzle is not just intellectual, it's emotional. Have you ever tried to fix one thing about yourself, only to find that each change uncovers deeper, older wounds? You try to become more confident, only to discover hidden anxieties, tangled histories, forgotten fears. Therapy can feel like this puzzle. You enter hoping to assemble a single image of who you are, but every time you make progress, new pieces emerge. Unexpected memories, buried traumas, confusing feelings. The closer you get to wholeness, the more you realize the puzzle of self has no border, no final piece. Completion becomes a horizon you can never quite reach. Some people experience this as creativity. You start to write a novel, and suddenly 10 new stories demand to be told. You compose a song, and melodies spiral out in every direction. The act of creation breeds infinite possibility. You think you're making something whole, but every brushstroke, every note, every sentence reveals a fractal of new beginnings. Creation and madness, two sides of the same cardboard piece. But, for others, the infinite puzzle is anxiety incarnate. Perfectionists, for example, can never finish. Every attempt to resolve a piece of life just spawns more to correct, improve, optimize. The inbox zero illusion. The to-do list that never shrinks. You're not lazy. You're stuck in a system that multiplies as you engage it. The puzzle is designed to be unfinished, because that's what keeps you trapped at the table, always busy, never done. Even philosophy itself is an infinite puzzle. Every great answer, what is truth? What is meaning? Generates 10 new questions. If you're a seeker, it's exhilarating. If you crave certainty, it's torment. The wise realize that the point is not to finish, but to participate in the assembling. It's not about seeing the final picture, but about how you arrange, rearrange, imagine, and respond to the endless rain of new pieces. And then there's the darker side, the existential horror. What if the puzzle is a trap? What if some intelligence, cosmic, algorithmic, or just evolutionary accident, constructed a world in which the urge to solve is irresistible, but the game is rigged to multiply forever? Like Sisyphus, eternally rolling the boulder, you are driven by the promise of closure, knowing deep down it will never come. The puzzle doesn't need you to finish. It just needs you to keep placing pieces. Yet, in the heart of this madness, there is something strange and beautiful. When you accept that the puzzle cannot be completed, a new perspective opens up. You stop measuring progress by how close you are to the edge, and start finding joy in the pattern that emerges moment by moment, piece by piece. You learn to dance with the infinite, to delight in the way the image changes, reshapes, surprises you. You build not for completion, but for discovery. There are stories, Real stories of artists who never finish a painting, scientists who never solve the final problem, inventors who die surrounded by prototypes. These aren't failures. These are lives spent exploring the infinite, navigating a universe that expands faster than understanding. Jigsaw puzzle enthusiasts sometimes talk about the zone, that trance-like state where you're not trying to finish, but just lost in the process. That is the paradox. In seeking to complete, you find endless beginnings. In letting go of the edge, you find a new kind of wholeness. Imagine for a moment that the puzzle is consciousness itself. Every thought you assemble, every memory you place, every plan you make, each creates more possibilities, more connections, more puzzles to solve. Your mind is an infinite table, and you are both the player and the played. Maybe the act of trying, of placing the next piece even as 10 more appear, is the essence of being alive. So, the next time you sit down with a puzzle, a project, a question that multiplies as you pursue it, remember, you are not failing by not finishing. You are participating in an ancient, beautiful, impossible dance. Completion is an illusion, but the act of assembling, exploring, questioning, that is real. That is creation. That is the madness and the meaning of cardboard and of life itself. And if, someday, you feel overwhelmed by the endless new pieces, remember that you're not alone. Every human before you and every human after has sat at this same infinite table, trying, failing, and sometimes smiling at the impossibility of the task. The edge is not the goal. The process is the point. The puzzle is you. Reverse mirror. Thought test. Imagine walking up to a mirror, just like you do every day. It's morning. You're tired. You rub your eyes, splash water on your face, and then you look up, expecting to see a familiar reflection staring back at you. But today is different. The glass isn't showing your face. It isn't showing your skin or your hair, your eyes or your scars. Instead, it's showing something deeper, something raw. Imagine if the mirror revealed not how you look, but who you really are. Not the outer layer you've constructed for the world, but the tangled reality beneath the surface. Imagine seeing your true self, unfiltered, unedited, a version that might be nothing like you imagined, the version that's been living beneath the mask you wear every day. Would you recognize the person in the glass? Or would you recoil, startled by the stranger who looks back? Let's linger in that uncanny moment, because the idea isn't just a fantasy. It's a thought experiment that drills straight into the core of identity, perception, and truth. Think about it. Every mirror you've ever gazed into has only shown you the sum of light, shadow, and angle. It's a physical reflection, but never an emotional one. What if you could see the things you keep hidden, even from yourself? What if your regrets, your kindness, your fears, your envy, your wounds, your silent dreams, all materialized as features on your reflected face? Would the eyes be hollow or burning with hope? Would the skin show cracks of all the promises you broke? Would your smile look genuine, or would it finally sag under the weight of all your suppressed sorrow? Let's try an example. Imagine a person who is outwardly charming and successful. At work, everyone admires them. They have the perfect answers, the perfect posture, the perfect smile. But inside, their mind is a storm, a torrent of anxiety, resentment, and secret doubts. They have moments of selfishness they never speak of. They have ambitions that gnaw at their soul, making them feel like a fraud. If this person steps in front of the reverse mirror, what would appear? Would we see the cracks spidering across their self-assured mask? Would their eyes flicker with insecurity, the corners of their mouth tighten with unspoken pain? Or would their reflection be something even more alien, a creature built from equal parts desire and dread? Now, picture a different person, someone who doubts their worth, who drags themselves through each day thinking they're not enough. They apologize for taking up space. They lower their voice. But inside, there's a quiet, stubborn resilience, a kind of fierce compassion that the world has never truly witnessed. In the reverse mirror, would this hidden power finally blaze forth? Would their posture straighten, their gaze harden with purpose, their lips curl into a knowing, secret smile that says, "You have no idea how strong I am"? The thought experiment splits us open. It asks, what is the truth of a person? Is it the story you tell the world, or the story you refuse to tell yourself? If a mirror showed you both, which would you believe? Psychology tells us that self-perception is a hall of mirrors already. You construct an identity, not only from what you believe, but from how others respond to you. A compliment can lift you. A criticism can wound you for years. But most of what you think about yourself is an echo, a patchwork of stories stitched together from family, society, memory, and fear. We wear masks so long we forget we're wearing them. But the reverse mirror cannot be fooled. It strips away performance, exposes contradiction, and demands honesty. Now, imagine what would happen if every person on Earth had to look into this kind of mirror once. Think of the chaos and the clarity. The lies we tell might curl away like smoke. The small kindnesses that no one noticed might blaze like a torch. Jealousy might scar the cheeks. Grief might pool beneath the eyes. But forgiveness? Maybe that would shimmer like gold. Can you imagine entire relationships rewritten overnight? A best friend sees the reflection and realizes finally how much they've always been loved. An enemy, seeing the damage they have done, feels guilt so real it stings their skin. What if nations' leaders had to face their own consequences before speaking to the world? How many wars would stall? How many confessions would spill out in tears? How many strangers would embrace? Or would it be too much? Would society collapse under the weight of unbearable self-truth? Let's go deeper. Science tells us that we don't even see our physical selves accurately. Mirrors reverse left and right. Cameras distort our faces. Even our own memories are plastic, warping with every recollection. The self we carry is already a fiction, a version written by perception, memory, and mood. So, what would it mean for a mirror to show something real? Is there even such a thing as a true self, or are we all just shifting mosaics, assembled from 1,000 moments, 1,000 choices, 1,000 small betrayals and silent victories? The reverse mirror confronts us with the question, are you the person you remember being, or the person you wish you were? Are you defined by your worst day, or your best? If your flaws and virtues had equal weight, what balance would your reflection strike? Let's look at history. Consider figures whose legacies have been polished or blackened by time. A tyrant, venerated in his day, now remembered as a monster. A quiet reformer, dismissed in life, now hailed as a hero. What if each could step into the reverse mirror? Would they see the sum of their deeds, the agony they inflicted, or the hope they inspired? Would they recognize themselves, or would the vision drive them mad? How many of us would be brave enough to stare into the glass and not look away? This isn't just a story. It's a challenge. The reverse mirror isn't hanging in your hallway, but it might as well be hiding behind your eyes. Every night, when you try to sleep, when your mind replays what you did and didn't do, you catch glimpses of your hidden self. Every regret, every private act of kindness, every envy you pretended not to feel, every time you stood up when it mattered. That's your real reflection, alive in the moments when you're alone and no one is watching. Now, imagine what happens if you begin to treat your life as if you're always looking in that mirror. You become conscious of your real motives. You start to see the faces behind the faces, the stories behind the stories. Maybe it makes you gentler. Maybe it makes you braver. Maybe it forces you to change. Because if you know the world can see your true reflection, how would you act? If you knew your next choice would show on your face forever, what would you choose? Let's bring this thought experiment back to the most personal level. Picture yourself standing before the reverse mirror tonight, in the dark, with no one around. You take a breath, you steady yourself, and then you look. What do you see? Is it everything you fear? Or is there something beautiful shining through? Something you never allowed yourself to believe? The reverse mirror is ruthless, but it's also merciful. It doesn't care about the stories you tell. It shows you the scars, but it also shows the healing. It reveals the fears, but it also reveals the courage that got you this far. In the end, maybe the reverse mirror is not about judgment, but about awakening. Maybe it's the test we need to remind ourselves that identity isn't static. It's earned, moment by moment, by the choices we make when no one is looking. It's the test that asks, are you willing to see yourself truly? And if you do, will you run? Or will you stay and try to become the person you hope you'll find? So tonight, when you face your reflection, let your mind wander for just a second. Imagine that the glass has melted, the illusion is gone, and the real you is waiting. Will you recognize the person who appears? Or will you discover a stranger, one who's been waiting all along to finally be seen? The observer dilemma. Close your eyes and imagine a room silent and sealed. Inside, a cat, unaware of its fate, sits in a box, surrounded by mechanisms and quantum uncertainty. This is the famous thought experiment, Schrödinger's cat. In quantum theory, until you open the box, the cat is both alive and dead, a strange, impossible overlap of realities. It's not that we just don't know, it's that, on the deepest level, reality itself hasn't decided. The wave function, the mathematical description of all possible states, remains uncollapsed. Only observation brings it crashing down into one fate, alive or dead. But here's where things unravel, because we always ask, who is the observer? Whose act of seeing splits the universe into certainty? At first, it seems obvious. The scientist lifts the lid, peers inside, and the cat's fate is sealed. Reality picks a side, but step back. What if the cat is its own observer? After all, the cat is conscious. Does it not see itself, sense its own heartbeat, feel its own hunger or fear? Maybe, at that very moment, the cat's awareness is what collapses the wave, rendering the whole experiment moot. Or perhaps the cat is trapped in a state of suspended animation, an observer that cannot observe, a consciousness locked in superposition, unable to save itself or surrender to fate. But keep going. Ask a more disturbing question. Who is observing the scientist? Imagine a world where the act of observation is never simple. The scientist, standing at the box, is also observed. A camera records her actions. A colleague watches from behind the glass. Her own consciousness, her thoughts, her doubts, become part of the equation. Suddenly, reality becomes a hall of mirrors, every observer caught in someone else's gaze, every collapse of possibility dependent on an endless chain of witnesses. Physics calls this the observer effect. The act of measurement changes the thing measured. In quantum mechanics, this isn't just a practical annoyance, it's fundamental. Electrons exist as probability clouds until measured. Photons pick a path only when watched. But what happens when every observer is themselves being observed? Who collapses whose reality? Who gets to decide what's real? Picture two people, each watching the other through one-way mirrors, each unsure if they are being watched or doing the watching. Their realities become entangled, a double helix of uncertainty where neither can say whose observation matters more. This is the observer dilemma. If a cat is both alive and dead until seen, and the observer is themselves unobserved, does the cat's fate ever resolve? Or does it hang forever in a shadowy limbo, waiting for the ultimate observer to peak? Now, zoom out to cosmic scale. Imagine a universe with no one to see it. Stars burn, galaxies spin, but if there is no eye to witness, no mind to record, is anything truly happening? Does the universe exist when unobserved? Or is all of space and time simply a shimmering field of infinite possibilities, waiting for someone, something, to look and make it real? This isn't just abstract theory. In some interpretations of quantum mechanics, reality is participatory. The universe needs an observer to make its choices, to fix the position of a particle, the color of a star, the fate of a cat. Some physicists whisper about consciousness causes collapse, the radical idea that only sentient awareness can break the spell, force the world into a single track. But if all consciousness is itself just a pattern of physical events, just more particles and waves, then who or what is the final observer? Now the paradox deepens. Suppose you are observed, you live your life, make choices, fall in love, feel pain, all the while watched by others. Their observation shapes your reality, your confidence, your doubts, your sense of self. But are you, in turn, creating their reality as you observe them? Are we all locked in a mutual collapse, each the observer and the observed, shaping and being shaped with every glance, every word, every silent moment? Think of a crowded city. You walk the streets, invisible in the crowd, but hundreds of eyes brush past you, some focused, some indifferent. In that web of observation, who is collapsing whose reality? Is your life more real because others see it? Or is there something in the act of being witnessed that multiplies possibilities instead of narrowing them? In a world saturated with cameras, screens, social feeds, we are all the cat, all the scientist, all the observer, collapsing and being collapsed, never sure which role is truly ours. Take a step further. What if there is no end to the chain? What if, for every observer, there is another, higher-level watcher? Is there a final I, an ultimate consciousness that sees all and seals fate for everyone? Or does the universe always defer the answer, never settling, always leaving a sliver of uncertainty, a shadow behind every certainty, a mystery at the heart of every truth? Some philosophers claim reality is relational. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is defined by its interactions, its observations, its entanglements. You are not just you are the sum of all who have seen you, loved you, feared you, forgotten you. Your life is a tapestry woven from glances, nods, judgments, affections. You are both the observer and the observed, collapsing and being collapsed, an endless loop of becoming. And so, the observer dilemma is not just a riddle for scientists. It's a mirror held up to every moment of your life. When you wake, you observe the world, but the world is watching you too. When you make a choice, you change reality. But reality is also choosing you. The cat in the box is you, and so is the scientist. And so is the watcher in the next room. And so is the universe itself. Peering back through the glass, waiting to see what you will become. In the end, maybe reality is a conversation, not a monologue, a dance of eyes and minds, each collapsing the world in their own way, each being collapsed in turn. Perhaps the only truth is that we are all both alive and dead, both real and imaginary, until someone, somewhere, finally decides to look. And in that moment, the universe wakes up and the story begins again. Brain in a vat. You open your eyes, the world arrives, light, color, shape, movement. Your senses tell a seamless story. You look down. There's your body, your hands. You feel the air on your skin, the chair beneath you, the taste of memory and meaning in every moment. But what if none of it is real? What if everything you've ever known is a hallucination? A dream painted by electrical signals, simulated by a power beyond your imagining? This is the brain in a vat problem, the question that gnaws at the root of reality, the fear that what you call life is just a shadow play behind your eyelids. Imagine it. You are not a person in a world. You are a brain, nothing more, floating in a jar of nutrient fluid. There are no eyes, no skin, no city, no sky. Instead, wires run from your gray matter into a computer. The computer sends perfectly crafted signals to your neural tissue, telling you a story of life, of love, of suffering, of hope. Every sensation you feel, warmth, hunger, music, heartbreak, is nothing more than data, electrical stimulation, orchestrated by a power you can never see. Why should this idea trouble us so deeply? Because it exposes the terrifying fragility of our trust and experience. Everything you know, everything you believe, is built on the bedrock of your senses. But senses can be fooled. If your brain receives the right input, it will believe anything. Close your eyes right now and try to prove, to yourself, not just to others, that what you experience is real and not a dream concocted by a machine. This is not just a thought experiment for philosophers. Science fiction has been haunted by this question for decades. The Matrix showed us a world where billions of people were plugged into an illusion, living entire lifetimes in a digital lie, while their bodies decayed in pods. But the question is older. Descartes, centuries ago, wondered if an evil demon could be deceiving him, crafting every sight and sound to fool his mind. In the modern world, we swap demons for computers, but the terror is the same. Let's go deeper. What would it feel like to be a brain in a vat? Would you know? After all, if the simulation is perfect, every test you invent to disprove it would also be part of the simulation. You try to pinch yourself. Your nerves fire, your brain registers pain. But what if that's just the system's response to your curiosity? You try to communicate with others, to share your doubts. But maybe they are simulations too, programmed to answer just convincingly enough to keep you inside the dream. Consider virtual reality as it exists today. People strap on headsets and plunge into worlds that feel real until the edges blur, the code glitches, the illusion fails. But what if, in some distant future, the technology is flawless? What if, someday, scientists can map every neuron, every synapse, every chemical flicker of your mind, and stimulate them perfectly? You could live an entire lifetime in a simulation, never suspecting. Birth, love, loss, joy, pain, death, all experienced, none of it real. And it gets worse. If you're just a brain in a vat, who is running the simulation? Is it a bored scientist, an alien intelligence, a sadistic power, curious to see how much suffering you can endure before you break? Or maybe it's no one at all. Maybe the process is automatic, indifferent, cold. Maybe you're just a byproduct of some ancient experiment, running long after its creators forgot about you. What does this do to your sense of meaning? If everything is fake, if your friends are lines of code, your childhood memories stitched together by random number generators, your triumphs and failures nothing but digital noise, why should you care about anything? Why should you bother to love, to strive, to hope? Is meaning only real if it's grounded in the physical world? Or can it be just as powerful, just as devastating, even if it's simulated? Some argue that it doesn't matter. If your experience feels real, then for you, it is real. A simulated sunset is still beautiful. Simulated pain still hurts. If you fall in love with a simulated person, if you mourn when they're gone, does it matter if their body is pixels and your own is a lump of brain in a sterile jar? Perhaps meaning is what you feel, not where you are. But others say that's a comforting lie. They insist that reality must be more than experience, that something real must exist outside the dream, or all value dissolves. If you're a brain in a vat, then you are alone, radically, cosmically alone. No one has ever touched you. No one has ever seen you. All those memories of connection, all those moments of kindness or cruelty are phantoms. You are a mind, untethered, drifting in a sea of illusion. So, how do you escape the vat? How do you break out of the simulation? Here's the unsettling answer. You can't. If your senses can be perfectly deceived, then any evidence you gather is just another layer of the illusion. Even doubt itself can be simulated. You could devote your life to searching for cracks in reality, to chasing glitches in the code, but maybe the program is too good. Maybe the world never slips, never reveals itself. Or maybe the search is the point. Maybe the real test is not whether you are in a vat, but what you do with the possibility. Do you choose despair, or do you choose defiance? Do you create meaning, knowing it might be artificial, or do you surrender to nihilism? The paradox is that the question itself shapes your existence. The more you search, the more the illusion adapts. Every time you think you've found proof, one way or the other, you realize it could be just another simulation, a trick designed to keep you going. Take a moment to imagine waking up in a laboratory. You see your brain floating in a glass vat, wires snaking into it, scientists peering at you through glass. They tell you that everything you remember is a lie, that your whole life was a test. How would you react? Would you mourn the world you lost? Or would you try to bargain your way back into the dream? Would you demand to be reconnected, to feel the warmth of sunlight and the comfort of love, even if you know it's all fake? Or would you rage? Would you fight to prove that you are more than your inputs, more than the sum of signals fed to you? Would you try to invent a reality for yourself inside the emptiness, a reality the experimenters can't predict? Maybe that's what you're doing right now. Maybe every act of creativity, every moment of doubt or hope, is your mind's way of asserting its freedom inside the cage. Some philosophers argue that the brain in a vat problem can never be solved. It's the ultimate epistemological trap. But maybe the point isn't to escape the vat. Maybe the point is to realize that reality is always mediated by perception. You are always trapped in your own mind, always limited by your senses, your memories, your beliefs. The vat is a metaphor for the human condition, the prison of subjectivity we can never fully escape. So, next time you marvel at the beauty of the world, next time you feel love, fear, hunger, or hope, ask yourself, does it matter if it's real? Or does it only matter that you feel it, that it shapes you, that it makes you who you are? If you're a brain in a vat, then this is the only world you'll ever know. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. But the question will always haunt you, like a shadow in a dream. How do you know you're not just a brain in a vat? And if you are, will you ever wake up? Or are you already awake, living the only reality you'll ever have, searching for meaning in a world that may be nothing more than a beautiful, exquisitely crafted lie? The scripted life thought. Imagine waking up one morning and feeling that familiar rush of spontaneity, the gentle chaos of existence. You roll over, stare at the ceiling, think about what you'll do today. You might call it freedom, the sense that every choice you make, every word you speak, emerges from a secret well inside you. You're the author, the actor, the director of this day. But what if that's the greatest illusion of all? Let's begin with a strange suspicion, the feeling that life is not entirely your own. You turn a corner, bump into a friend you haven't seen in years. You take a job you swore you'd never take. You fall in love with the one person you always told yourself was off limits. Each moment, each decision seems spontaneous until you look back. Only in hindsight do the invisible threads appear, tying today to something that happened long before you were born. What if those threads are not just coincidence? What if your story, every gesture, every heartbreak, every so-called accident, was written long ago and you're simply living out the next line? Science and philosophy have wrestled with this question for centuries. Neuroscientists have peered into the brain and found, disturbingly, that decisions are often made before you consciously decide. In some experiments, brain scans can predict your choice seconds before you're aware of it. You think you're in charge, but the machinery is running in the background. Is free will just a post-it note your mind sticks on top of a script you never wrote? Let's push this further. Imagine your entire life as a novel. Every twist, every surprise is already there in the pages. The hero, you, thinks they're improvising. But the story only ever unfolds one way. You laugh at a joke, not because you chose to, but because the author, destiny, the universe, some cosmic playwright, penned that laugh decades ago. Your sense of agency is just the feeling a character gets as they read their own dialogue for the first time. Consider the childhood memories that shaped you. Did you choose your parents, your culture, your first heartbreak? Did you decide which country to be born in? What language would carry your secrets? Or which beliefs would seem obvious? All those things were scripted before you ever took your first breath. Your personality, the thing you think of as you, was built from a pile of experiences and genetics stacked together by forces outside your control. So when you feel the thrill of making a choice, how much of it is really yours? Imagine a day where everything feels new. You decide to take a different route home, thinking, "This is my will at work." But later, you find out that route leads to a fateful encounter, a chain of events that changes your life. Was it really a random decision, or was it just the next sentence in a chapter written long before you knew how to read? Let's step into a deeper nightmare. What if you could read ahead? What if you found a book with your name on it, the story of your life, every moment, past and future, laid out in ink? Would you dare to turn the pages? And if you did, could you change a single word? Or would every effort to break free, every desperate attempt at rebellion, only push you toward the ending already written? Think about those moments that feel like déjà vu, the eerie sense you've lived this before. Maybe it's not just a glitch in memory. Maybe it's a crack in the script, a reminder that the path you're on is well-trodden, that the lines you're speaking are echoes of an ancient rehearsal. Or consider the dreams that haunt you, the lives you might have lived, the choices you never made. Are those the ghosts of unwritten drafts, or the echoes of stories you were never allowed to tell? Some will say this is just fatalism, a trick of perspective, that yes, your past shapes your future, but every moment is still open. Yet physics tells a colder story. The universe is a clock, ticking forward with mechanical precision. The laws of cause and effect are merciless. Every neuron, every heartbeat, every thought is the inevitable result of what came before. There is no room for magic, no place for might have been, only what is and what must follow. But here's the strange comfort. Even if life is scripted, you are still the only one who gets to live it. The character is real to themselves, even if their role is written. You feel the heartbreak, the joy, the boredom, the surprise. The story might be fixed, but the experience is always fresh. The page may know what comes next, but you do not until you turn it. Let's bring it down to earth. You're listening to this right now, feeling the shape of these words in your mind. You didn't choose to stumble on this topic today. Something led you here, a cascade of moments, decisions, and accidents. All you can do is breathe in, listen, and wonder, am I reading the script, or is the script reading me? Maybe the answer is both. Maybe the story is richer for its paradoxes. Maybe the sense of freedom, the thrill of improvisation, is itself part of the story, an essential illusion that gives the script meaning. Even if every step is written, the journey is yours. Even if the words are laid out in advance, only you can give them voice. So the next time you feel the weight of a decision, the dizzying sense of freedom, pause and ask yourself, who is writing this moment? Is it you, or are you just the pen in someone else's hand? Does it matter? Or is the beauty of life found in living the story, even if you'll never see the final page until you arrive at its end? In the end, perhaps the deepest mystery is not whether life is scripted, but how it feels to live a script so intricate, so convincing, that even the characters believe in their own free will. Perhaps the greatest story ever told is the one that makes you forget you're living it line by line, until one day you look back and realize every word was waiting for you all along. Locked room consciousness. You wake up. You're alone in a room. There are no windows, no doors, no cracks in the wall, just seamless surfaces all around, smooth and silent. The air feels artificial, weightless. Yet, you remember everything. Your name, your childhood, every detail of your life. You remember waking yesterday in a world that made sense, one with exits and choices and open skies. But here, there's only now. Only you. And the more you search for a way out, the more you realize the room is perfect. Impossibly so. No escape, no origin, no flaw. It's a scenario that claws at something deep in your brain. A paradox, a fear, a test. Is this reality or the moment before something even larger begins? Are you trapped or being prepared for a bigger reveal? Welcome to the locked room consciousness paradox. It's not just a sci-fi setup, but a genuine question about the nature of self, memory, and existence. Consider your first impulse, to look for a way out. It's instinctive, primal. Humans are creatures of curiosity and survival. The idea of being boxed in, with no visible exit, is almost unbearable. It evokes everything from ancient burial fears to modern nightmares about waking in hospital rooms or inside coffins. But the locked room you're in isn't physical. It's a metaphor, a mind space, a prison built not of bricks, but of certainty and awareness. Let's go deeper. If you know everything about your life, but cannot interact with anything outside this room, how do you know the world exists at all? Are your memories evidence or just code, preloaded data like a simulation's boot sequence? If you feel pain, joy, boredom, does it matter if there's a universe outside, or are your feelings the only reality that matters? What if this room is all there ever was? Or what if it's the antechamber to something vast, waiting for you to become conscious before beginning the real experience? There are old philosophical puzzles that haunt this scenario. Descartes imagined an evil demon, so powerful it could feed him false sensations, convincing him of a world outside that wasn't real. Modern thinkers call it the brain in a vat problem. If your mind is fed signals indistinguishable from reality, could you ever know the difference? This locked room is the physical form of that riddle. Everything you believe is built from memories, yet your current experience is absolutely limited, sealed, inescapable. Which is more real, the room you perceive or the history you recall? Imagine you begin to test your environment. You pound the walls, you scream, you try to count time, measure the air, search for temperature changes, echoes, flaws, nothing. The room does not yield. No change, no response. For a while, you focus on your memories instead. Childhood joys, heartbreaks, the sound of rain, the taste of your favorite food, the rush of first love. But you start to question, are these really yours? Or just perfectly engineered recollections designed to keep you sane while the simulation calibrates itself? Are you an original or just a copy loaded with someone else's data, a test pattern before the main program runs? The horror grows more intense. Every second spent in the room is another second you can't prove the outside world. Maybe you've already died, and this is the afterlife. Endless solitude with only your mind for company. Maybe you're a prisoner, punished with isolation. Or maybe this is birth, not death. The loading screen before your consciousness is inserted into a vast simulated universe. Is the room a cell, a womb, a buffer zone, a glitch? The questions multiply, each more unsettling than the last. There are real-world parallels. Neuroscience tells us that our experience of outside reality is always mediated by the brain. You don't touch the world directly. Your senses are just chemical and electrical signals processed in total darkness inside your skull. In a way, we are always in locked rooms. Our bodies, our minds. We trust the signals are accurate, that there's a world outside. But how do we really know? Patients in sensory deprivation tanks report vivid hallucinations, strange memories, the feeling that reality is slipping. Their own minds begin to generate worlds to fill the void, because consciousness abhors a vacuum. If you were trapped in a perfect, featureless room, how long before your mind started to create doors, windows, maybe even people to talk to? Is the locked room a test to see how long you can last before you start inventing a new reality? Some thinkers argue that consciousness itself is a locked room. You only ever experience your own thoughts, feelings, perceptions, never anyone else's directly. The world outside is always a guess, an act of faith. When you wake up in the locked room, what's changed? Only your certainty that you can't leave. The boundaries are clearer, more cruel. But the puzzle is the same. Are you the dreamer or the dreamed? Let's imagine you try to break the paradox. What if you simply refuse to believe the room is real? You close your eyes, focus, try to will yourself awake, but nothing happens. Or does it? Maybe the very act of doubting, of questioning, is the key. If this is a simulation, maybe it only starts once you achieve true self-awareness. Maybe the locked room is a trigger. When you question your own experience deeply enough, you graduate to a higher level. Or maybe you're stuck forever, because there is no level above this, no hidden exit, just you and your thoughts echoing in eternity. Now, imagine a variation. You're not alone in the room. Another person wakes up beside you, claiming they remember a totally different life. Their details, their story, their pain. Is their existence proof the room is real, or just a more elaborate simulation? Do two prisoners make the cell more real or more false? You trade memories, trying to find overlaps, inconsistencies, bugs. But what if every answer just leads to more confusion? What if your only company is yourself, endlessly multiplied, each version remembering a different story? There are experiments that mirror this experience. Isolation studies show that when people are cut off from external cues, their sense of time unravels. Days stretch, identities dissolve. Some begin to hallucinate loved ones, hear phantom sounds, invent elaborate stories just to stave off the terror of nothingness. The mind is not built for emptiness. The mind fills the void. But there's a beauty, too, in the locked room. If you can't escape, maybe the only solution is acceptance. Maybe the room is a blank canvas, and your memories are paint. You can create meaning, even in isolation. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the worst prisons humanity has ever built, wrote that meaning can be found even in suffering, perhaps especially in suffering. If there is no door, you make your own, by choosing what your consciousness does, how it remembers, how it transforms the cell into a story worth telling. And then, just as you begin to make peace, the room shudders. A line appears in the wall, a door, impossibly forming where before there was none. It swings open and light floods in. Was it always there, hidden until you learned the lesson? Or did the simulation only begin now, after you proved you were truly conscious, truly self-aware? You step through the door, and the story resets. Or maybe you never leave. Maybe the door was just another memory, another layer in the simulation, a hope your mind generated to keep from collapsing under the weight of forever. Maybe every door is a dream. Every room is a story. Every waking is another puzzle. So, next time you question reality, when you feel trapped, isolated, certain there's no escape, remember the locked room is as much a part of you as you are of it. The edge of consciousness is not the wall, but the act of asking, is there more? Are you the prisoner, the warden, or the architect? Or is the question itself the door? In the end, maybe that's all reality is, a locked room that keeps opening, as long as you keep searching for the exit. And maybe the only thing more infinite than the room is the mind trying to wake up inside it. The sealed box soul. Imagine for a moment that everything you've ever known, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the taste of your favorite food, the voices of people you love, even the sound of your own thoughts, vanishes. You are placed in a sealed box, and not just your body, but your very soul is locked inside. There are no senses, no sights, no sounds, no smells, no touch, no taste. There is no language, no time, no memory, no thoughts, no feelings, just an absolute perfect nothing. The question is chillingly simple, yet terrifyingly profound. If your soul is in that box, what's left? Do you still exist? Or do you vanish into that void, erased by the absence of everything that ever made you you? This isn't just a hypothetical. It's a mind-bending test of the boundaries of identity, consciousness, and what it even means to be alive. We take for granted that we are ourselves because we can think, feel, remember, desire, regret, and hope. But strip it all away. Take away every sensation, every memory, every scrap of thought. What remains? Is there a core of being beneath the surface? Or is consciousness just a fragile construction, held together by the endless dance of sense and story? Let's dig deeper. Throughout history, people have tried to define the soul. Some say it's a spark, immortal, indivisible, the true you that survives death and forgetfulness. Others say it's nothing more than a story the brain tells itself, a trick of chemistry and chance. But the sealed box doesn't care about belief. It offers only silence and darkness, a place beyond narrative, beyond memory, beyond even fear. You cannot say, I am. You cannot think, I was. There are no words, no concepts, no continuity, just the box. Now, let's try a thought experiment. Picture yourself slowly losing your senses. First, sight fades to black. Then, sound drains away until you cannot even hear your own heartbeat. Touch, taste, smell, one by one, they are stripped away. Your body is gone. Your memories dissolve, one detail at a time, like ink in water. Your thoughts stutter and disappear. You can't even ask, where am I? Because there is no language left to ask it. You are nothing but the possibility of existence, floating in an ocean of blankness. At this point, does anything remain? Is there a glowing ember of selfhood, a soul, that exists even when all else is stripped away? Or is that ember only a fantasy, a comfort we cling to because we fear the true abyss of non-being? Let's look at neuroscience. The self is a tapestry woven from sensation, memory, and attention. You know you're alive because you're constantly reminded by the world, the tickle of air on your skin, the rhythm of your breath, the throb of a forgotten wound, the buzz of a memory, the rush of a new idea. When the brain loses input, say in extreme sensory deprivation, it starts to unravel. People in isolation tanks report hallucinations, strange dreams, even a dissolving sense of self. With no input, the mind creates noise, anything to escape the horror of perfect silence. But what if you took even that away? What if you severed the last thread, thought itself? Would you remain, or would you become as empty as the darkness around you? Let's turn to philosophy. René Descartes famously said, I think, therefore I am. But what if you can't think? If you cannot sense, cannot remember, cannot even imagine, do you still exist? Or is I am just a trick of the moment, a candle that needs constant relighting? Buddhist philosophy pushes even harder. It asks if the self is just a wave, rising and falling on the surface of the mind. If the wave ceases, what remains? Is there an ocean or only emptiness? Imagine now for a second that the box is not a prison, but a test. If you are still there, with no memory, no desire, no pain, no joy, is that existence at all? Or is it indistinguishable from non-existence? Let's push the analogy with a computer. If you unplug a computer and its hard drive is wiped, does the computer still exist as a meaningful entity, or is it just a shell, potential, but nothing more? Now let's explore the other side. Some traditions, mystical and philosophical, claim that beneath thought, beneath experience, beneath personality, there is a pure awareness, not a thinking self, not a feeling soul, but an unchanging witness, a silent observer. Could it be that in the sealed box, this pure awareness would remain, silent, blank, but somehow still present? Is that the soul, the thing that remains when everything else is stripped away? There's a powerful analogy in dreams. Sometimes you become lucid. You realize you're dreaming, even as the dream dissolves around you. But what if you become aware in the total absence of dream, in the deepest sleep, when there is no image, no sound, no story? Some traditions claim awareness persists, pure and formless, the true ground of being. Or perhaps the box shows us the ultimate terror, that self is an illusion, assembled from fragments of memory, sensation, and narrative. When those vanish, so do you. The box isn't just empty, it is the erasure of self, the end of story, the silence after the last word. Let's return to reality for a moment. People who lose their senses, piece by piece, often report a fading sense of identity. Prisoners in solitary confinement, cut off from the world, begin to hallucinate, to forget, to dissolve. But even then, there is still some input, some echo, some hint of the world outside. In the sealed box, even that echo is gone. So, what's the answer? If your soul is locked in a sealed box with no senses, no thoughts, no memories, do you still exist? The answer may be that there is no answer. It may be that the question itself is flawed, because existence without awareness is indistinguishable from non-existence. If a soul exists but can never sense, never think, never remember, never act, what's the difference between that and nothing at all? Yet there is a strange hope here too. Maybe the sealed box is a metaphor, not a prophecy. It reminds us that everything we are, every laugh, every heartbreak, every hope, is precious because it is fleeting, fragile, alive. Consciousness is not a guarantee. It's a miracle born from the collision of mind and world, of sense and story, of memory and dream. So, the next time you find yourself wondering what remains when all else is gone, remember the box. Remember the silence. Remember that what you are, right now, is a miracle of presence, a fleeting ember in the dark. Maybe, just maybe, the true answer isn't about what remains after everything is stripped away. Maybe it's about cherishing everything while it's still here. Maybe it's about living, sensing, feeling, loving, hoping, because those are the things that keep the box at bay. And when you ask, would I still exist in the sealed box? Maybe the truest answer is this. You are here now, sensing the world, alive with possibility. That's enough. That's everything. The stopwatch choice. Imagine someone hands you a stopwatch. At first, it looks ordinary, plastic, cool, slightly scuffed from a lifetime of forgotten races and playground games. But they lean in, eyes glinting with a secret, and tell you, if you press the button, time will stop, not for a second, not as a trick of perception. Truly, utterly, time itself will freeze for everything and everyone except you. Traffic will halt mid-motion, leaves hang suspended in the air, raindrops like glass beads in the sky. The world will become your silent, still-life kingdom, each moment frozen and waiting. At first, the temptation is intoxicating. Who hasn't dreamed of stopping time? You imagine exploring museums alone, reading every book, slipping past locked doors to secrets meant for no one. You picture stealing moments, a prank, a treasure, a secret look at the forbidden, all without consequence. You see yourself fixing every mistake before anyone notices, slipping between danger and regret like a ghost, rewriting your own past with the press of a button. You become the god of the in-between, master of every moment. But then you wonder, what would it really mean? At first, perhaps you'd rush through the empty city, marveling at the way light cuts through glass and hangs in the air, at pigeons mid-flight, children's laughter forever captured on frozen faces. You'd explore, test the boundaries. How far does the stillness reach? Does it end at the edge of your town or the world? What happens to the sea, to the clouds, to the stars? Do they stop too, or drift silently on, indifferent to your experiment? Time is now yours. But with each step, the loneliness grows. Every person is a statue. Every sound vanishes into a silence so deep it aches. You try talking to friends, but their eyes don't meet yours. Their warmth fades from memory, replaced by the chill of endless solitude. You wander back home, flicking the light switch on and off, watching the bulb never change. You realize every comfort, every thrill is hollow unless it's shared. How long before your mind starts to fray? At first, you're free from judgment, from deadlines, from loss and grief. But freedom without witness is a cage of glass. You can eat, drink, sleep, but time never moves. You alone carry the weight of boredom and longing, the ache for laughter and argument, for noise and chaos. The world is yours, but it is empty. The echo of your own footsteps is the only sound you'll ever hear. You might try to wake someone, shout, shake, scream, but they don't respond. Their breath is still, their pulse unmoving. You realize, with terror, that nothing you do can make them see you. You have become a ghost, unseen, unchanging, untouched by the people you love. You watch their faces, longing for a flicker of life. You talk to them, confess old secrets, apologize for old mistakes, whisper your fears. But it's all a soliloquy, an endless monologue echoing in the museum of your own regret. You might try to keep busy, read every book in every library, learn every language, solve every puzzle. But knowledge without anyone to share it with becomes a burden. Achievement turns to dust when no one celebrates or cares. You find yourself craving the messiness of real life, the arguments, the laughter, the pain of loss, and the joy of reunion. The risk, the struggle, the unknown. You realize that what makes time precious is not the moments themselves, but the people you spend them with, the chance to be surprised, to be vulnerable, to love and be loved back. Now imagine, with infinite time and infinite solitude, your own sense of self begins to shift. You lose track of days, of years. You speak out loud just to hear a voice, any voice, even if it's your own. Your memories blur. You forget the sound of your mother's laugh, the warmth of a friend's hand. Your own face in the mirror becomes strange, a relic from a world that no longer exists. Are you still human? Or have you become something else? Some silent caretaker of a museum universe, doomed to wander among statues forever? Consider the famous fable of King Midas, who wished that everything he touched would turn to gold. At first, the power is intoxicating. But soon, every joy, food, love, friendship, turns to lifeless metal. The curse was never in the gold, but in the loss of connection. The stopwatch is the same. The power to stop time seems like a blessing. But in truth, it strips away everything that makes life sweet. Unpredictability, vulnerability, togetherness, change. Or think of the legend of the wandering Jew, condemned to live forever as the world moves on without him. Immortality is not a gift, but a sentence. To outlive every relationship, every story, every joy, until the only companion left is memory, and even that fades. You, with the stopwatch, are like him, stuck between moments, alone in a world that never wakes. Now, flip the question. Would you ever press the button? Would you risk losing everything that binds you to others just for a taste of absolute freedom? Or would you put the stopwatch away, resisting the lure of control in favor of life's messiness and impermanence? Maybe the real courage is not in seizing power, but in letting go, in accepting that meaning is born from risk, from time's march, from the certainty that every moment, once lost, can never be regained. You might try one day to start time again, but will you ever be the same? Even if you return, you are marked by the silence, changed by the solitude. You see the world differently, treasuring the noise, the chaos, the brief flashes of connection that once seemed ordinary. You notice details, the sound of your friend's voice, the softness of sunlight, the laughter of strangers. You realize time is not the enemy. Time is the thread that weaves us together, the river that carries us toward the unknown, toward love, toward loss, toward meaning. But what if you never go back? What if the fear of loneliness is outweighed by the terror of regret? The fear that the world will move on without you, that you'll be forgotten, replaced, erased from every story you cared about? The stopwatch becomes your only companion, a cruel god, always tempting, never forgiving. The longer you linger, the harder it becomes to press the button again and return to the flow of life. In the end, the stopwatch choice is a test, a mirror reflecting your deepest hopes and fears. It asks, what is freedom if you are alone? What is power if it costs you your humanity? What is time if it cannot be shared? The answer is not simple. It is not a riddle to be solved, but a haunting, open question. A reminder that the true measure of a life is not how long it lasts or how much you control, but how deeply you are woven into the stories of others, how much you give, how much you love, how bravely you accept the limits of being alive. You set the stopwatch down, heart pounding. The world is loud again, unpredictable, alive. You walk outside, sunlight on your skin, the hum of traffic, the laughter of strangers, the quicksilver chaos of every fleeting moment. And for the first time, you are grateful for time, for change, for everything you cannot hold, for being, once again, beautifully, inescapably human. Quantum dice, free will. Imagine standing at a crossroads, the moment heavy in your chest. On one side, a path leading to the life you've always imagined. On the other, a detour into uncertainty, challenge, and maybe greatness. You pause, heart pounding, believing you're weighing the options, balancing your values, exercising free will. You feel the agency of choice as something sacred, personal, even heroic. But what if you were never the one choosing? What if, in the instant before your decision, an invisible dice was rolled, a quantum die scattered by the very laws of the universe, and your path was chosen for you before you ever knew you had a choice? This is the paradox at the core of quantum dice free will, the unsettling, exhilarating, and devastating idea that every decision you make is determined by the outcome of a cosmic, random process that you can never witness or control. You are not the author of your actions, but the product of probabilities, your will reduced to a point on a scatterplot drawn by the universe's indifferent hand. Let's dive deep into the quantum world, where the rules are not what you expect. Down here, beneath the skin of reality, particles do not behave as tiny billiard balls, following predictable paths. They exist in a haze of possibilities, a cloud of maybe that only collapses into certainty when measured or observed. An electron can be in many places at once. A photon can take two paths, and only when you look do you force it to choose. The outcome? Fundamentally random. Not merely unknown, but unknowable, driven by something that is not hidden cause, but pure chance. Now, consider your brain. It's a machine of electrical storms, chemical flows, quantum events firing in the dark. Neurons communicate through a dance of ions, molecules, and possibly quantum-level triggers. If, as some scientists suggest, consciousness itself may arise from quantum effects in the microtubules of neurons, then every flicker of thought, every leap of intuition, every moment of will might be influenced, however slightly, by quantum randomness. So, when you decide what to say, whom to love, whether to turn left or right, what if your conscious deliberation is just the theater on top of a stage built by the roll of a cosmic die? What if, beneath every motive, every intention, there's a random variable, a coin toss baked into your biology? Does that terrify you? Or does it set you free? Because if every action is the product of a dice roll, are you liberated from the burden of guilt and regret? Or are you a ghost, haunting a life you never truly chose? Picture a person at a casino, placing bets at the roulette wheel. Every spin is a story of chance, a drama, a hope, a heartbreak. But now, imagine that every decision in life is just as random. The food you crave, the risks you take, the kindness you show. Every time the wheel spins, the dice falls, and reality settles on one of countless possible outcomes. But is that all you are? A statistical illusion? A pattern that emerges from randomness, like a face glimpsed in static? Or does meaning survive, even if choice is just an afterimage of chance? The debate is ancient. For centuries, philosophers have argued about free will, whether you are the master of your fate or a slave to cause and effect. Determinists say your every action was written at the birth of the universe, the inevitable outcome of atoms and laws. Libertarians claim you are truly free, a self-originating spark of will. But quantum physics breaks the script. It says the future is not fixed, nor purely free, but fundamentally indeterminate, a shadowland where what happens only happens because the dice demanded it. Let's go deeper. Think of the double-slit experiment. A single photon, fired at a barrier with two openings, seems to pass through both at once. Only when you observe does it decide which path to take. This is not just a puzzle about particles. It's a metaphor for choice itself. Before the moment of decision, your future is a wave of possibility. When you choose, the wave collapses, but the outcome may be determined by an irreducible quantum roll, not your will. Take a more personal example. You stand at the edge of a life-changing decision, a marriage proposal, a confession, a leap of faith. You agonize for days, weighing every option, rehearsing every consequence. Then, suddenly, you decide. In that flash, was it your rational mind that chose? Or did the quantum dice fall, tipping the balance in ways you'll never comprehend? Does your story belong to you, or to the randomness at the heart of reality? There are those who find comfort in this. If everything is random, then you can't be blamed for your failings. If you hurt someone, if you lose your way, perhaps it was just the dice. No different from the genes you inherited, the childhood you survived, the storms you couldn't predict. But there's a darker side. If you don't own your actions, can you claim your victories? Is your love authentic if it was decided by statistics? Is your courage real if it was merely the roll of a die? Yet, something deeper stirs beneath this terror. Even if the quantum dice rules your every move, the experience of choosing feels real. The struggle, the hesitation, the joy of commitment. They are the music of consciousness. Maybe free will is not about ultimate control, but about living inside the drama, embracing the uncertainty. Maybe meaning is born not from mastery, but from dancing on the edge of possibility. Let's not forget, the universe itself is built on chance. Galaxies swirl, stars ignite, planets form, all because of quantum fluctuations in the ancient void. Life arose on Earth because of improbable, random events, stitched together by the loom of evolution. Your very existence is a cosmic miracle, a chain of lucky dice rolls stretching back billions of years. If randomness made you, does it cheapen you? Or does it make you more precious, more improbable, a singular point of awareness in a sea of possibility? So, the next time you agonize over a choice, remember the quantum dice. Remember that every decision is the child of randomness and reason, chaos and consciousness. Maybe you don't own your actions in the way you wish. Maybe you are a statistical illusion, a self that flickers in and out of existence as the dice falls. But even so, you are here. You choose, you love, you regret, you hope. You are the story that chance tells itself, a brief blazing pattern in the cosmic static. And maybe that's the deepest kind of freedom, not freedom from chance, but freedom within chance. The freedom to dance, to strive, to embrace the wild, beautiful uncertainty of being alive, knowing that every step you take is both yours and not yours, both chosen and given, both random and deeply, fiercely real. So, do you still own your actions? Or are you a product of the dice? In the end, the answer may not matter. What matters is how you live inside the question, how you find meaning, even when the universe rolls the dice, and you are the number that comes up. The Forgotten Traveler Test. Imagine waking up in a quiet, unfamiliar room. There's a suitcase by the door with your name on it, but nothing inside feels familiar. You check your phone, no contacts, no photos. A stranger appears and calmly tells you you've just arrived from another life, but before you crossed over, all your memories were wiped. The shock sets in. You look down at your hands, wondering, who am I? Who was I before this moment? And perhaps the most unsettling question, what should I become next? This is the Forgotten Traveler Test, a haunting scenario that blurs the line between identity, memory, and the power to rewrite yourself. At first, you might feel lost, almost weightless. All the stories you once used to define yourself, your favorite childhood games, the scars on your heart, your deepest fears, are gone, dissolved in a silent erasure. You have habits, maybe a few reflexes, but no context. Are you a blank slate? Or is the real you hiding somewhere, waiting to be uncovered? As you move through this new life, clues emerge. Maybe someone recognizes your face in the street and smiles. Maybe a song on the radio stirs something in your chest. An ache that makes no sense, a longing you can't explain. You start to realize that even with no memories, some part of your old self lingers in the shadows. But are those echoes enough to rebuild who you were? Or are you simply a puppet, desperately patching together a mask from whatever scraps you can find? Consider the science of amnesia. Real people lose decades to a car crash or a stroke. They wake up with no memories of their partners, their jobs, their pasts. But remarkably, many rebuild a life, crafting new routines, forming fresh relationships, even falling in love all over again. Sometimes, fragments of their old selves return, favorite foods, muscle memory, the instinct to flinch at certain sounds. But often, they must invent a personality from scratch. Do they become who they once were, or are they forever changed? Someone new carrying a body with a history they'll never know? Imagine you are this forgotten traveler, thrust into a world that insists you had a rich, complex life before. Friends and family tell stories you don't remember. They show you photos, laugh at inside jokes that land like riddles. Every day is a test. Should you trust their stories? Should you try to become the person they remember, following their cues, mimicking their affection? Or should you rebel, forging a new self, rewriting your identity from nothing? Is the pressure to be your old self a cage or a lifeline? The paradox runs deeper. If you start acting like the person everyone says you were, does that make you them? Or are you just wearing a costume, a mask crafted from secondhand stories and expectations. And if you reject that past, choosing to invent yourself anew, are you betraying a ghost or simply honoring the truth that you are, right now, someone else entirely? Let's ground this in something real. Every day we play this traveler's game, just more slowly. Your past self is always vanishing. You've already forgotten thousands of days, millions of moments. The person you were as a child, or last year, or last week, is gone, replaced by a newer version who carries only fragments forward. Memory is selective. Identity is built on shaky ground. How much of yourself is just a story you keep retelling, smoothing over the gaps with convenient lies? Psychologists say that identity is an ongoing process, a performance that never really ends. You change schools, you move cities, you lose friends and gain new ones. Each time, you adapt. You exaggerate some traits, suppress others, invent new habits, and forget old wounds. In a sense, we are all forgotten travelers, constantly arriving from a version of ourselves that no longer exists, forced to decide whether to reconstruct the old persona or risk building something utterly new. Now, imagine the temptation in the forgotten traveler test. With no memories, you are free, terrifyingly free. No shame, no guilt, no debt, no regret. You could become anyone. You could craft a new accent, a new sense of humor, a new philosophy. But how would you decide what is truly you and what is just borrowed? If someone hands you a journal they say you wrote, do you believe it? Or do you write your own, line by line, with each new day? But the world will not leave you alone. Old acquaintances knock at your door. They want their friend, their lover, their child back. They remind you of your favorite things, your dreams, your promises. The pressure mounts to step back into the costume of your old life, to revive the person they miss. But deep inside, you feel a resistance, an urge to rebel. Why should you be chained to a past you cannot feel? If identity is performance, why not write your own script? Here's the real terror and beauty. In the forgotten traveler test, both options are fraught. If you rebuild your old self, you might find comfort, connection, and meaning, but always with the suspicion that you're just playing a part. If you create a new mask, you face loneliness and uncertainty, but with the thrilling possibility of authenticity, even if no one else recognizes you. Think about the rare cases of fugue states, where a person wakes up with no idea who they are and begins an entirely new life, sometimes for years. When their memories return, the shock is profound. They feel like two people sharing one skin. Which is the real identity? The one with the longer history, or the one born in the void? In the end, the forgotten traveler test is a mirror for every human life. Memory is fragile, and the self is always under construction. The past is never as fixed as it feels. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is acknowledge the emptiness, the possibility to start anew, and choose moment by moment who you want to become, even if the world demands you resurrect the ghost of a person you no longer remember. So, if you woke tomorrow with everything wiped clean, would you spend your days chasing the shadow of the forgotten traveler you once were? Or would you seize the chance to forge a new identity, risking everything for the possibility that your truest self is not behind you, but waiting to be created here and now with each uncharted step? The magic button paradox. There is a button in front of you, simple, ordinary, but humming with potential. You're told a secret. If you press this button, you can have anything you want. Money, fame, health, love, even impossible miracles, whatever you imagine. There's just one catch. Each time you press it, someone, somewhere, someone you will never know, never meet, never even hear about, will die. Instantly. Silently. No connection, no evidence, no story in the news. It happens, and you move on. Or so you think. At first, it feels like an abstract riddle, a paradox of morality and desire. But imagine, really imagine, this button is real, cool, and solid beneath your fingertips. Imagine the question is not hypothetical, but a test of who you truly are, what kind of world you're willing to live in, and what price you'd pay to shape reality for yourself. This is the magic button paradox, a thought experiment that tears open the divide between consequence and conscience, self and other power and guilt. Let's break it down. The first press is the hardest. You stare at the button, wrestling with your conscience. It's easy to rationalize. After all, you'll never know the person. They might be old, sick, and already on the edge. It's not your fault, is it? You didn't create the rules. You're just playing along. You tell yourself, maybe, that if you don't press it, someone else will. That the world is already cruel, and your small action means nothing against the vast machinery of fate, so you press it. The air doesn't change. There's no thunder, no whisper, but you feel a chill run through you. Guilt flutters, then settles. Maybe you try not to think about what you just did, but the button sits there, inviting, eternal. Your wish arrives. Suddenly your life is different, better, easier, a dream realized. And yet, that night as you try to sleep, your mind drifts. Who was it? A child, an artist, someone about to fall in love. Did you just snuff out a future that might have changed the world? Or was it a villain, a tyrant, someone whose death spared thousands? You'll never know. And that's the paradox's poison. Uncertainty. The horror is not just in the act, but in the void that follows, an emptiness you can never fill. But what if you need more? The button's still there. The second press is easier. You rationalize further. It's only one more. It can't make that much difference. And so, you press it again. And again. The benefits pile up, but so does the shadow inside you. You start to feel the weight of invisible corpses stacking in your soul. How many times before you feel nothing at all? How many before you feel everything all at once? An avalanche of regret you cannot escape. Psychologists call this moral desensitization. The first act is wrenching. The next is easier. Soon, the line between right and wrong blurs, erodes, collapses. You stop counting, stop caring, until the haunting begins. Maybe not in ghosts, but in your dreams, in your self-respect, in the subtle ways you begin to pull away from people. You see yourself in the mirror, but the reflection is foggy. Is this still you? Or someone you barely recognize? Now, consider this. If you could truly have anything, what would you even want? Would your wishes become more selfless as the cost grows? Or more selfish, driven by greed, envy, lust, the need to fill a void that only grows with every wish fulfilled? Research shows that unchecked power often leads to moral collapse. When people are given absolute authority without consequences, their empathy fades. They start to see others not as real, but as numbers, statistics, obstacles, or just background noise in their own story. But the button is cunning. It makes every death invisible, every consequence deniable. You don't see the pain, the funerals, the empty chairs at a family dinner. The world keeps spinning. Maybe you're even celebrated for your luck or talent. No one suspects, no one ever knows, except you. And that's the point. This paradox is not about external judgment. It's about the private war inside your mind, the invisible courtroom where your conscience is judge, jury, and sometimes executioner. There are echoes of this dilemma in real life. Consider the choices we make daily, the systems we participate in without seeing their costs, the cheap products we buy made possible by suffering halfway around the world, the food we eat, the energy we consume, the policies we ignore, all while unseen others pay the price. The magic button paradox asks, if the consequences are hidden, are we still responsible? Or does ignorance absolve us? Now, let's take this further. Imagine you meet someone you love, truly, deeply. Would you use the button to save them, to grant them happiness, knowing it costs a stranger's life? What if it was to save yourself from suffering, from death, from loss? How quickly does the line between acceptable and monstrous blur when you have a reason? Philosophers call this the problem of moral luck. Are we truly good or just untested? The button exposes the gap between our ideals and our actions, our self-image and our shadow. But there's a deeper level still. Imagine if everyone had a button. 1 billion people, all pressing, all wishing, all erasing invisible strangers from existence for the sake of personal gain. How long before the world empties? Before humanity is a wasteland of wishers, alone in their splendor, haunted by what they've destroyed? The paradox is not just individual, but collective. The structure of the universe bends around the morality of its inhabitants. The more we act without consequence, the less real others become. This scenario mirrors the tragedy of the commons, where individual choices, harmless in isolation, lead to catastrophic consequences when multiplied. One person pressing the button feels negligible, but when everyone does it, the world unravels. This is the hidden warning. Even the smallest acts, multiplied by millions, shape the destiny of everything. But let's not leave the story here. What if you refuse? What if you stare at the button and choose not to press it, no matter the temptation? You deny yourself the wish. Bear the longing. Embrace the lack. Maybe nothing changes. Maybe you remain ordinary, unsatisfied, unremarkable. But something inside you remains whole, intact. You live with limits, but you also live without blood on your hands. Or imagine the opposite. You press the button, but it breaks you. Every wish is poisoned by the cost. You become paranoid, restless, haunted by shadows you cannot name. You search for absolution, but it never comes. The magic of the button curdles into a curse. Here's the twist. Maybe that's the real paradox. The haunting is not supernatural, but psychological. The true magic is not the button, but the capacity for guilt, for empathy, for restraint. What makes you human is not the power to take, but the ability to say no, to live with your desires unfulfilled, because someone else's life is not yours to spend. The greatest power is in restraint, not in wish fulfillment. So, how many times would you press the button before it haunts you? Once? Twice? Never? The answer reveals not just what you want, but who you are, and what you believe about the world and your place in it. The magic button. Paradox is a mirror. It reflects your shadow as well as your light. It asks not just what you'll do, but who you'll become when the consequences are hidden, when the only witness to your choices is you. Maybe the real test is not what you wish for, but what you're willing to live without, to keep your soul whole. Maybe the haunting is not punishment, but the last sign of a conscience still alive, still fighting for the invisible, the forgotten, the stranger on the other side of the world. The button is waiting. The question is eternal, and the answer, in the end, is yours alone. The mask that feels. You wake up in the morning and reach for your mask. Maybe it's not made of porcelain or plastic, not something you hold in your hands or strap to your face. Maybe your mask is as subtle as the way you answer, "I'm fine," when you're not. As soft as the smile you show at work, at school, with friends, while something aches quietly beneath your skin. Every day, you slip into that role, cheerful, agreeable, put together, optimistic. Maybe you call it being strong. Maybe you call it being professional. Maybe you call it survival. At first, you know it's fake. The muscles ache a little from holding the smile. You say the right words, but inside, you're counting the minutes until you can drop the act. But the world rewards the mask. The world likes a bright face, a calm presence, a positive story. Your friends relax when you joke. Your boss praises your composure. Even strangers return your smile with one of their own, as if your performance is contagious. So you keep wearing it, day after day. You perfect the shape of it. You learn which words sound reassuring, which laugh feels most convincing. Sometimes you even rehearse in the mirror, testing your reflection. Does this look real enough? Will anyone notice the cracks? Then, something strange happens. Time blurs. The mask becomes routine, automatic, effortless. The difference between the real and the performed starts to dissolve. You catch yourself smiling in the mirror, and for a fleeting moment, it doesn't feel fake anymore. In fact, it almost feels good. Maybe you even feel lighter. But then comes the whisper of doubt. Did you finally convince the world, or did you convince yourself? Are you still wearing the mask, or did the mask become you? This is the paradox at the heart of human identity. We like to believe we are the authors of our own selves, that our feelings are deep and true, that we can tell the difference between genuine and counterfeit. But psychology tells a more complicated story. The boundary between performance and reality is fragile, blurry, and constantly shifting. You can pretend for so long that the performance starts to change you, rewire you, remake you from the inside out. Let's look at the science. There's a phenomenon called the facial feedback hypothesis. It says that the very act of moving your facial muscles into a smile, regardless of whether you're feeling happy, can actually make you feel happier. Your brain doesn't always know the difference between cause and effect. You smile because you're happy, but you can also become happy because you smile. The act feeds back into the emotion. The mask begins to shape the face beneath. Now, imagine an actor who plays a joyful character every night for months on stage. At first, it's just a job, a performance, lines recited under hot lights. But as weeks pass, something strange happens. The emotions they're faking start to spill over into their real life. They find themselves laughing more, connecting more, feeling lighter even off stage. Did the role change them? Or did they simply awaken a part of themselves they had neglected? Was the mask a lie or a doorway? Consider someone who fakes confidence in social situations. At first, every compliment, every joke, every handshake feels forced. But after months of acting confident, they start to notice that people treat them differently. People listen more, trust more, even admire. And as those reactions accumulate, real confidence begins to grow. The mask of courage plants a seed, and over time, the seed becomes a tree. Did they trick others? Or did the trick transform them? But let's be honest, sometimes the mask doesn't feel good. Sometimes it's suffocating. Some people wear a mask of happiness to hide depression, of strength to hide pain, of indifference to hide heartbreak. The longer they wear it, the more lost they feel. The mask grows heavy, fusing to the skin, blurring the memory of who they really are. They ask themselves, am I still in here somewhere, or did the mask consume me? This is the double-edged sword of adaptation. Humans are built to adapt. We're social chameleons, shaped by feedback from our environment. We change our tone, our words, even our thoughts to fit the expectations of others. Sometimes, this is a blessing. A shy person learns to be bold. A fearful person learns to be brave. A broken heart learns to love again. But sometimes, adaptation is a prison. The mask becomes armor, hiding wounds that never heal, until the wearer forgets what it was like to live unguarded, unedited, real. So which is it? Does wearing the mask make you a liar, or does it reveal the secret power of transformation? Maybe it's both, or neither. Maybe the mask is just another part of you, a tool, a crutch, a costume you try on until it feels like skin. Let's turn the lens inward. Why do we wear masks in the first place? Sometimes it's fear. Fear of rejection, of judgment, of being too much or not enough. Sometimes it's hope. The hope that by faking strength, you'll actually become strong. Sometimes it's love, the wish to protect others from your pain. But beneath every mask is a longing, to be accepted, to belong, to be seen, even if only for the performance you give. But the real twist comes when you realize that everyone is wearing a mask. The person who seems happiest may be hiding loneliness. The confident one may be battling self-doubt. The perfect friend may be aching for someone to ask if they are really okay. And maybe, just maybe, their mask is slipping too. Here's the secret the world rarely tells you. Masks are not always the enemy. Sometimes, the mask you wear to survive becomes the bridge to a better self. The act of pretending can plant the seeds for genuine growth. The smile you fake can become the smile you feel. The kindness you offer, even when you don't mean it at first, can awaken real compassion in your heart. The mask, in this sense, is not a lie, but an invitation to become more than you were before. Yet, it's dangerous to forget you're wearing it. If you lose sight of your true self, the mask can become a prison, one you lock from the inside. The trick is to remember, you are both the mask and the face beneath. You are the person you perform, and the person who aches to be real. The mask is a tool, not a replacement. It can protect you, teach you, transform you, but it cannot define you forever. So the next time you catch your reflection, smiling out of habit, ask yourself, who is smiling? Is it the mask or is it you? Maybe it's both. Maybe the line between real and fake is not as clear as you thought. Maybe, over time, you can choose which parts of the mask to keep and which to let go. In the end, the story of the mask that feels is the story of becoming. It's the story of how we change ourselves. Sometimes by pretending, sometimes by hoping, sometimes by sheer force of survival. It's a story of pain and possibility, of risk and redemption. Maybe you did trick others. Maybe in the process, you reprogrammed yourself. Maybe the mask you wear today is the bridge to the self you will become tomorrow. So wear your mask if you must, but don't forget the face beneath. And when the mask finally feels real, ask yourself, is this who I wanted to be? If not, remember, you still hold the power to change again, because the mask is only ever part of the story, and the rest is still unwritten. Clone with your memories. Imagine walking into a room and seeing yourself, Not in a mirror, not on a screen, but in flesh and blood. A clone. They blink, they breathe, and when you speak, they answer with your voice. This clone has your memories, every scar, every heartbreak, every fleeting joy from your first steps to your latest hope. Their laugh is your laugh. Their pain, your pain. In that moment, it's as if your story has been copied and pasted into a new vessel, down to the smallest secret. At first, it's exhilarating. You trade stories, finish each other's sentences, remember things nobody else could possibly know. Your clone recalls childhood fears, hidden dreams, the bitter taste of a long-forgotten failure. They wince at the same memories that haunt you. Suddenly, your most private moments aren't private at all. There's someone else out there who knows your life from the inside, not as a friend or a twin, but as a perfect reflection. But here's the puzzle. If your clone died, would you grieve? They aren't a stranger. They are you in every way that counts. You share everything but a body. Is their death just another's tragedy? Or would it echo deep within you, as if a piece of your soul had vanished? Philosophers have wrestled with this question for centuries. Are you just your body? Or are you your memories, your patterns, your consciousness, your story? If so, does the clone's existence diminish your own uniqueness? When they die, do you lose a witness to your own life? A fellow traveler who understood every corner of your mind? Or is the pain even deeper, like watching yourself disappear from the world one final time? Picture this. Your clone walks outside and experiences heartbreak. They feel love, loss, triumph, despair, just as you have. If tragedy strikes and your clone is gone, the world loses not just a person, but a living backup of your own journey. Their memories die with them, and something unrepeatable is lost. You are left as the only living proof that your story ever happened. Would you feel lonely, or would you feel free? Suppose you could create more clones, 10, 100, 1,000. Would each one be a dilution of yourself? Or does the soul remain unique no matter how many copies exist? Is immortality possible through endless duplication? Or does it become a curse, an infinite series of you, each one real, each one doomed to be lost? Now, imagine your clone makes choices you never would. They fall in love with someone you never met. They pursue dreams you never dared. At what point does your clone's life diverge enough to become a stranger? Is grief for your clone simply grief for an alternative version of yourself? One who made different decisions, who suffered or thrived, where you did not? Or consider the possibility that your clone suffers. If they are mistreated, do you feel their pain? Is your empathy magnified or dulled by the knowledge that it's only a copy? If your clone dies, is your grief real, or is it just a ghost of self-pity, mourning the loss of what could have been? Some philosophers argue that personal identity is an illusion, a fragile narrative the brain clings to in order to make sense of change and continuity. If your clone has your story, your feelings, your everything, are they not as real as you? Does it matter if they were created in a lab or born in the same family? If they vanish, what have you truly lost? Imagine attending your clone's funeral. Friends and family gather, mourning someone who looks, sounds, and even dreams like you. They recall stories that could just as easily be about you. Would you feel like a survivor or an imposter? Would you leave feeling lighter or lonelier than ever before? The clone with your memories is not just a sci-fi puzzle. It's a mirror. It asks what makes you, you. Is it the memories, the choices, the point of view? Or is it the unrepeatable sequence of your single fleeting life? When your clone dies, would you grieve, or would you finally understand what it means to be uniquely, irreplaceably yourself? Sleep without existence. Every night you close your eyes and surrender to sleep. The world fades. Your heartbeat slows, muscles relax, and your mind drifts. Out of control, out of awareness. It feels like rest, like a pause, like a healing ritual that lets you rise renewed. But what if you're wrong? What if, instead, sleep is the end of you, every single night? What if, as your consciousness dissolves, the self you spent all day building vanishes completely, and every morning something new wakes up, something that looks like you, talks like you, carries your memories, but isn't the same you who closed their eyes the night before? It's a disturbing thought, maybe even horrifying, because it means every day you are reborn with a past you didn't actually live, a ghost inheriting the memories and identity of someone already gone. The person who solved yesterday's problems, who said, "I love you," who felt fear or shame or hope. That person is dead. You are their replacement, wearing their skin, believing their story, never realizing you are only the next in an endless line of ghosts. Consider this. When you sleep, consciousness shuts down. There are no thoughts, no stories, no self. Science calls it non-REM deep sleep, the period when your brain's sense of time and identity simply ceases to function. The brainstem keeps the body alive, but the you who thinks, decides, and dreams is just gone. It's not like blinking or resting or falling silent. It's oblivion. It's a gap, a blackout, a flicker where reality disappears. When you wake up, you remember going to sleep, but you have no direct connection to the consciousness that was there before. You just assume you're the same because the memories are in the same body, in the same brain. But are you? Or are you just the next version, identical in every way, yet separated by a chasm of nothingness? Imagine making a perfect copy of yourself, memories and all, while you sleep. The copy wakes up, picks up your life, and goes about the day never realizing the original is gone. Would anyone notice? Would the new you? Or would existence itself simply continue, uninterrupted, one you vanishing each night, another taking over each dawn? Think of the philosophical puzzle called the teleportation paradox. If you're disassembled atom by atom and rebuilt somewhere else, is the new you still you? Or is it just a copy, a perfect imitation, with the original lost forever? Sleep is your nightly teleporter. You step into the darkness and vanish. Someone else emerges, holding your life like a baton in a relay race. Let's take it further. Suppose you could watch your sleeping self from outside. You see the body lying motionless, breath steady. At some point, consciousness flickers out, like a candle snuffed in a windowless room. For hours, there is nothing. No observer, no dreamer, no self. Then, before sunrise, consciousness sparks again. But is it the same flame, or a new one lighting up the old wick? Who can say? In the morning, you wake with the weight of your past, feeling like a single thread running through time. But that's an illusion. The only proof you have is your memories, and memories are just recordings, stories stitched together by a brain desperate for continuity. You believe you are the same you as yesterday because you remember yesterday's life. But the truth is that you is gone. You are their descendant, a new consciousness with an old diary, convinced it is original. This theory isn't just metaphysical poetry. It has roots in neuroscience, in the study of consciousness and personal identity. The brain is a machine for creating the illusion of continuity, building a seamless story from flickering moments. When you sleep, that illusion breaks. When you wake, it rebuilds, never noticing the chasm in between. Now imagine the consequences. If every night you die, then every morning is a birth. What does that make you? A ghost? A replacement? A momentary flame flickering in an endless succession of strangers? If you could meet the you who woke yesterday, would you feel kinship? Or would it be like meeting a sibling you never knew existed, familiar, but not truly you? If sleep is death, should you fear it? Or does it set you free? Maybe it means every morning is a second chance, a brand new you with a chance to make new mistakes, chase new dreams, escape old regrets. Or maybe it's terrifying, the knowledge that you, right now, will not survive the night, that your final act is to create the memories and stories for a successor who will never know you truly existed. This idea haunts every morning, every yawn, every struggle to remember a fading dream. Who wakes up each day? Who carries your burdens, wears your name, lives your life? If the you who lived yesterday is gone, then maybe every day is a miracle, existence itself, a gift given to a new consciousness, if only for a single sunrise. You lie down tonight, certain you will rise again. But the truth is, you never do. Only a memory does. Only a story continues, passed from one you to the next, like a flame handed from candle to candle, burning bright until sleep snuffs it out, and another, new, identical flame flickers into being, asking, with every breath, "Am I real?" The frozen moment trap. Imagine the world stutters, then stops. Not like hitting pause on a video, not like drifting off to sleep, not the silence of midnight or the lull of a waiting room. Everything freezes, absolutely, perfectly. You remain awake, conscious, floating in a single endless moment. The breeze stalls mid-air, leaves trapped in a glass sky. Your friends stand in mid-laugh, faces twisted in expressions that never finish. Somewhere, a drop of water hangs between faucet and sink, light glinting off its curve, never falling, never landing. The world is a photograph, but you are not. You are awake, fully aware, and trapped. At first, maybe there's no fear, just wonder. You try to move, but your muscles won't obey. Your eyelids refuse to blink, your heart will not beat, but you can think, you can feel. The tickle of air on your skin, the urge to cough or scratch an itch. Impossible to answer, eternally present. Panic rises. You want to scream, but your throat is locked. You want to run, but your legs won't budge. Your body is a statue, a living fossil encased in the amber of a single second. Time, the invisible river that once carried you forward, has evaporated. The world is a painting you can never leave, a loop with no escape. You stare at the same colors, the same faces, the same silent, unmoving world for what feels like eternity. The urge to blink becomes agony. The need to breathe becomes torture. There is no pain, but there is no relief either. Just the ache of endless anticipation, of needs that will never be met. You try to remember what came before. The memory of motion, of noise, of laughter, the sensation of running, singing, holding someone's hand, memories that fade slowly as your mind fills with the monotony of stillness. You replay old moments, desperate for a hint of change, a flicker of movement, but nothing happens. Nothing will ever happen again. Is this existence? You are conscious, thinking, aware. But what is awareness without time? If your thoughts cannot turn into action, if you can never move or change or speak, do you still exist in any meaningful sense? Are you still you, or just a mind echoing endlessly in an empty shell? You wonder if you are dreaming, but dreams require time. Even nightmares end. Here, there is no ending, no story, no progress, only the infinite suffocating now. Consider the philosopher's thought experiment. If a mind is cut off from the world, unable to act, is it still a mind? Or is it a spark, lost in the dark, waiting for the impossible return of time? You cannot affect the world. You cannot be seen or heard or felt. Are you still a person or just a ghost, trapped in your own skull? Perhaps you try to escape into imagination. You recall every book, every movie, every memory you can conjure, spinning endless stories in your head. But with no new input, no change, even imagination becomes a prison. You forget words, then faces, then your own name. Thought itself slows, collapsing into repetition, boredom, then numbness. In a frozen moment, eternity is not bliss. It is the slow erosion of self. Now you understand the horror of stasis. Life is defined by change, by time, by the dance of cause and effect. Without motion, without growth, without even the hope of an ending, what is left? The self fades into fog. You become a rumor, an echo, a silent witness to a world that can never move again. Would you beg for oblivion? For an ending? Or would you cling to each memory, each fading spark of thought, desperate not to vanish completely? Is it better to be frozen and aware, or to slip quietly into nothingness? Are you the last observer, the last shred of consciousness, the final flicker in a dead universe, the frozen moment? Trap is not just a nightmare, it is a mirror, showing what happens when life is stripped of all possibility, all motion, all hope. It asks, is existence without time really existence at all, or does true life require the risk of change, the uncertainty of tomorrow, the promise that even pain will pass, and that every moment, good or bad, is only ever a step on the way to the next? Somewhere, deep inside, you realize, even suffering is better than this. Even heartbreak, even fear, because those things move. They end. They teach. But here, nothing ends and nothing begins. You are trapped in forever, and in that endless stillness you learn what it truly means to exist, and to long for the movement of time, for the mercy of change, for the chance to be swept forward again, even if it means losing everything. Time is not your enemy. Time is the only escape. Time is the breath that proves you are alive. Without it, You are nothing but a mind pressed like a flower between the pages of a book that will never turn. And in that silence, you ask yourself, over and over, do I still exist? Or am I just the memory of movement, dreaming of a world that can never move again? Alien zoo illusion. Imagine this. You're living your normal life, waking up to your alarm, checking your phone, stepping out into the world, making choices as if they are truly yours. But what if, at this very moment, every choice you make is actually being watched, cataloged, measured, not by society, not by family or friends, but by beings so far beyond you that their motives are unknowable? What if you're not living freely at all, but are a subject in a cosmic experiment, a human in an alien zoo, your entire world nothing but a simulation to study your reactions? Every heartbreak, every triumph, every so-called coincidence, just a data point in an experiment whose purpose you'll never understand. Pause. Take a breath. Look around. The alien zoo illusion isn't just a sci-fi fantasy. It's a psychological earthquake. It's the ultimate twist on the simulation hypothesis, where not only is your reality simulated, but its creators are not human, not benevolent, not even neutral. They are distant observers, aliens whose only goal is to see how you respond when pushed, prodded, and provoked. Maybe you're already picturing white lab coats, blinking lights, incomprehensible alien eyes peering down from beyond the screen. But the truth is, if this illusion is real, you'll never see the walls of your cage. You'll never even realize you're in one. Consider how this would warp your experience of choice. Let's say you're standing at a crossroads in your life. You think, should I take this new job or stay where I am? Should I confess my feelings or stay silent? Should I leave this city or remain? Each time you sweat, you agonize, you search your heart for the right answer. But what if that tension is the very thing being studied? The aliens want to know, when cornered by fear, by hope, by uncertainty, do humans leap or freeze? Do they betray or remain loyal? Is your love genuine, or is it a script written to see how you'll perform when you believe no one is watching, but someone always is? Picture the laboratory. Not a cold steel room, but the world itself. Your hometown, your workplace, your childhood memories. Every face in the crowd could be a planted actor, a simulation within a simulation. The barista who remembers your order, the stranger who bumps into you on the street, even the friend who calls at just the right moment when you're at your lowest. Are they real, or are they subtle manipulations? Nudges designed to provoke a reaction that will be logged, analyzed, maybe even rewarded? Is your suffering a random accident? Or is it engineered, a test to see how much pain the human spirit can endure before breaking? For some, this illusion breeds a kind of existential paranoia. Every time something strange happens, losing your keys, dreaming of a person you haven't seen in years, meeting someone who seems too perfect, your mind circles the possibility. Was that real? Or was it inserted, like a variable in an experiment? Your failures might not be failures at all. They're stress tests, seeing how you react to frustration, despair, hope snatched away at the last moment. Your joys are samples, your griefs are probes, your dreams are manipulated inputs. How far can you be pushed before you stop believing in meaning altogether? Let's ground this in a concrete example. Imagine you've just lost your job, seemingly out of nowhere. You replay every moment, every conversation, every minor misstep. The shame and anger coil inside. But what if, in the alien zoo illusion, this is not just bad luck? What if the very conditions of your firing, your boss's change in mood, the sudden policy shift, the random audit, were all inserted, calculated moves designed to test your resilience? Do you rage? Do you despair? Do you rebuild? For the aliens, your response is more important than your happiness. They want to know, what does a human do at the edge of hope? Or take love. You meet someone, feel a cosmic connection, as if fate itself is guiding you together. You fall, fast and hard. But soon, things unravel. Misunderstandings grow, tempers flare, pain replaces joy. In the alien zoo illusion, this isn't just a failed relationship. It's a scenario, carefully crafted to see what happens when humans are given and then denied their deepest desires. How do you process heartbreak? Do you become bitter? Do you search for meaning? Or do you rise again, seeking new love as if the first was just a rehearsal? Every tear, every moment of forgiveness or fury is data. Now imagine the flip side, the illusion's most insidious trick. Sometimes the experiment is not pain, but the illusion of control. You are given a series of choices that feel momentous. Should you move to another city? Should you switch careers? Should you change your beliefs? But what if, all along, the outcomes are already chosen, and your sense of free will is just another variable? The real experiment isn't what you choose, but how hard you fight to believe your choices matter. And then, the ultimate horror. What if you try to escape? What if you become aware, even dimly, that something isn't right? You test the boundaries. You make wild, unpredictable choices. You tell secrets to strangers, quit your job impulsively, refuse to play by the rules of the simulation. But every time you try to break free, the world adapts. Coincidences pile up. New characters appear. Reality reshapes around your rebellion, as if the experimenters are saying, "Good. Now let's see what you do next." You're not escaping the zoo. You're moving into the next phase of the experiment. But there's another layer, subtler, more haunting. If the alien zoo illusion is true, it's not just your world that is fake. It's you. Your memories, your beliefs, your deepest convictions, all can be altered, erased, or inserted. Maybe you've never been a real person at all. Maybe you're an advanced construct, a piece of code designed to think you're real, to feel the full range of human emotion just so it can be observed and measured. What does it mean to suffer if your suffering is manufactured? Is a synthetic heartbreak any less real than a natural one if you feel it just as deeply? Science fiction has toyed with these questions for decades, but the alien zoo illusion cuts deeper because it forces you to confront the boundaries of your own reality. Consider the classic brain in a vat thought experiment. If your brain is kept alive and fed simulated experiences, how would you ever know? Now replace the scientist with an alien civilization so advanced you cannot even comprehend their goals. You're not a unique soul, you're a representative sample, a single rat in a maze so vast it feels infinite. But why would aliens do this? The answer is both chilling and humbling. To them, you are an enigma. Maybe humanity is the first of its kind, a rare accident in a cold universe. Or maybe we're just one experiment among trillions, no more important than bacteria in a petri dish. Every war, every peace, every act of cruelty or kindness, a piece in a cosmic puzzle. And just as we breed animals for traits or test drugs on lab mice, they watch us to learn, to understand, maybe even to manipulate for their own ends. So, what do you do with this knowledge? Some collapse into despair. Why struggle if the world is fake? Why hope if your pain is just a test? But others find freedom. If your suffering is being watched, then let it be magnificent. If your choices are being measured, then let them be unpredictable, defiant, beautiful. Maybe the only way to win the experiment is to play by your own rules, not theirs. Maybe meaning is not something given to you, but something you create in defiance of the cage. Or perhaps, in the end, the alien zoo illusion is not a curse, but a mirror. It forces you to ask, if every moment is being watched, what kind of life would you want to perform? If every pain is data, what kind of story do you want your suffering to tell? Are you the subject of an experiment, or the author of your own myth? Even in captivity, in the silence after this question, listen carefully. The only answer you'll ever truly have is the one you choose to live, even if you're being watched, measured, and cataloged by beings who will never truly understand what it means to be you. The predicted future test. You sit across from the oracle, your heart thundering in your chest, the room thick with the scent of incense and old, unreadable power. The oracle's eyes are ancient, patient, and in their depths you see a vision, your own future. Not just a blurry shape or a vague intuition, but a single, unbreakable scene. Maybe it's a job you never wanted, a heartbreak you swore you'd never face, or a victory you secretly feared. The moment you see it, the timeline of your life splits in two, before the prophecy and after. Before, your future felt endless, filled with branching roads and secret detours. After, every road feels like it's bending, coiling, dragging you back to that one vision. You tell yourself you'll escape it, you'll outsmart fate. But with every step, the air grows thicker, the world smaller. You are caught in the paradox of the predicted future. Let's go deeper. Why does knowing your own future change the very shape of your reality? Psychology calls this the self-fulfilling prophecy. Philosophy calls it fatalism. Physics, if you squint hard enough, might call it a kind of quantum collapse, a probability turned into a certainty just by being observed. You become the watcher and the watched and the stage itself. Once you glimpse your destination, every instinct is to resist. If the oracle says you'll betray a friend, you cling to loyalty, overcompensate, become suspicious, maybe push them away just to prove the prophecy wrong. But that very act, the desperate scramble to escape, becomes the engine that drives you straight into the arms of fate. Take Oedipus, the ancient king in Greek myth. He's told he will kill his father and marry his mother. Horrified, he flees home, determined to outpace destiny. In running, he triggers a series of choices: a stranger killed in a fit of rage, a queen wed in a foreign city, that seal his fate. The tragedy isn't that Oedipus is evil or weak. The tragedy is that knowledge itself becomes the trap. He's no longer living his life. He's living against his life, and in doing so, every step writes the prophecy deeper into the bones of reality. You may think, that's myth. I'm rational. I can change my story. But pause. Think about the subtle ways knowledge of the future warps the present. Have you ever been told you'll never succeed at that? Or you're destined for greatness? Even if you scoff, the seed is planted. It lingers. It colors your choices, nudges your confidence, tweaks your doubts. Sometimes just knowing what should happen primes your brain to make it happen, even unconsciously. You sabotage or you overachieve, not because fate demands it, but because your mind can't forget the shape of the prophecy. In neuroscience, this is called expectation bias. Your brain is a prediction machine, always adjusting, always filtering reality to fit the stories it's been told. Given a strong enough prediction, you start scanning for evidence that it's true. Missed a deadline? Maybe the oracle was right. Got a compliment? Maybe that's the first sign of the future coming true. Your mind, hungry for coherence, builds the prophecy into the story of your life, piece by piece, clue by clue. There's another, darker layer. Imagine the oracle tells you something truly terrible. On your 30th birthday, you'll lose everything. You wake up every day with that dread pulsing beneath your skin. At first, you try to prevent it. Save more money, check your health, distance yourself from risk. But as the date draws closer, the stress builds. You snap at friends. You skip opportunities out of fear. You become so preoccupied with avoiding loss that you stop living. Then, one day, an accident, a friendship crumbles, a job falls through, and you realize you've lost everything, just as foretold. Was it fate? Or did your belief in the prophecy make you self-destruct? Now, let's flip it. Imagine you're told something wonderful. You'll win the prize, you'll find love, you'll achieve your dream. At first, you're skeptical. Then, gradually, you start to act a little bolder. You take risks you wouldn't have dared. You walk into rooms with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their story ends well. And as your actions change, so do the results. Opportunities open. People respond to your new energy. Success begets success, not because fate handed it to you, but because the belief drove the action. In this way, the future is a canvas, and the prophecy is the brushstroke that shapes the whole painting, even if you can't see it up close. There's a haunting question at the heart of all this. Did knowing your future cause it to happen? Or was it always going to happen, with the prophecy just a glimpse through a crack in the wall? Physics toys with this idea in the concept of the observer effect. In quantum mechanics, particles don't choose a state until they're measured. Observation doesn't just reveal the outcome, it creates it. Your life, once observed by the oracle, collapses into a single outcome. The prophecy isn't a warning or a promise, it's a mechanism. The moment you know, you change. But there is another way to see this paradox. A liberating, terrifying, hopeful way. Maybe fate isn't written in stone. Maybe it's written in soft clay, and every time you look at it, you reshape it just a little. Your knowledge is both a blessing and a burden, a tool that can build or destroy. The real trap is not the prophecy itself, but the belief that you have no power at all. Imagine if, after seeing your future, you learn to hold it lightly, to act with awareness but not obsession, to let the vision inform you but not enslave you, to notice when you're acting out of fear and when you're reaching for hope. In this way, the prophecy becomes a mirror, not a cage. Take a moment and imagine your own life as a timeline, past, present, future, all flickering in front of you. Now imagine someone hands you a sealed envelope. Inside, the details of your fate. Would you open it? Would you dare to know? Or would you choose to live with the uncertainty, the shimmering possibility that anything could happen. The paradox of the predicted future is this: to know is to change is to move closer, and to move closer is to become what you feared or hoped for. The prophecy is the spark, but you are the fire. The real power isn't in knowing what's ahead, it's in recognizing how that knowledge transforms who you are right now. Maybe the future isn't a script, but an improvisation, endlessly altered by every choice you make in response to what you think you know. The oracle is just the beginning. The rest is up to you. This is the haunting truth behind the predicted future test. Not just a puzzle of fate and free will, but a challenge to see how deep the roots of prophecy grow within your mind. Did knowing your future cause it, or did it simply make you notice the invisible hand already steering your life? In the end, maybe the greatest mystery isn't whether you can escape your destiny, but whether you ever had one in the first place, or if it's all a story your mind tells to make sense of the chaos. And as the incense fades and the oracle's gaze drifts away, you realize that the answer was never really in the vision. It was in what you chose to do after you saw it. Perfect world prison. Imagine waking up one day in a room that contains everything your heart has ever longed for. The walls melt away, replaced by whatever scenery you desire. The food is always perfect. The company is always comforting. Every wish is fulfilled before you even speak it. The room becomes your world, a paradise crafted entirely for you. You never suffer, never want, never struggle. Every dream is instantly real, every discomfort erased. This is the perfect world prison, a paradise so absolute that it never lets you leave. And as days melt into weeks, a question begins to claw at your mind. Can happiness truly exist if it's trapped behind invisible bars? Or is joy just an illusion when freedom is the one thing you're forbidden? At first, the sensation is intoxicating. Think of all the things you've wished for in your waking life. The perfect meal, the comfort of unconditional love, endless entertainment, infinite peace. All of it is delivered effortlessly. Want to be surrounded by friends? They appear, laughing at your jokes, telling you exactly what you want to hear. Want the sensation of adventure? The room can become a mountain, a city, a beach at sunset. The temperature is never too cold or too hot. Even the air tastes sweet with possibility. You are the king, the creator, the dreamer, and the dream is always in your favor. But underneath this perfect surface, something starts to itch. A quiet, persistent ache. It's the sense that, for all the perfection, something is missing. You look for the door, but there isn't one. You try to open a window, but you're met with nothing but your own reflection. The paradise begins to press against you like a velvet coffin. It's soft, comforting, and inescapable. The longer you stay, the more the perfection loses its taste. Food that once thrilled you becomes bland. Entertainment dulls. The laughter of companions begins to sound hollow, scripted. Every wish fulfilled without effort begins to rob the world of meaning. There's no challenge, no surprise, no risk of loss. It's not just that the world is easy. It's that the very things that once brought you happiness now seem empty. It's the difference between water when you're dying of thirst and water when you've drunk too much. One saves you, the other suffocates. Psychologists have a name for this: the hedonic treadmill. The human brain adapts to pleasure. No matter how high you climb, no matter how many dreams are granted, the mind quickly resets to a baseline of expectation. You acclimate to bliss, and then it becomes the new ordinary. In the perfect world prison, the treadmill never stops. The highs flatten, the joys dull, the thrill fades. The perfection becomes its own cage. Let's take an example. Imagine a world-famous musician placed in this room. All their favorite instruments are present, perfectly tuned. They can play to an adoring crowd every night, receive thunderous applause, bask in admiration. At first, it feels like heaven. But soon the cheers start to feel repetitive, meaningless. There is no uncertainty, no risk, no chance of failure, no room to grow or to be surprised. The applause becomes white noise. The artist, stripped of struggle and challenge, finds their passion withering. What's the point of creating when every note is already loved, every song already a masterpiece? Or consider someone who has always craved love, a partner who never argues, never leaves, never challenges, always agrees and adores. It sounds like a dream, but in this room, even love is synthetic. There are no real conflicts, no misunderstandings to resolve, no distance to bridge, no genuine risk of heartbreak. Love, without the possibility of loss, loses its meaning. You know the love is programmed, always there, unable to fail you, and so it stops feeling real. This dilemma haunts philosophers and scientists alike. Is happiness real if it is manufactured? Is joy authentic if it cannot be threatened? In classic thought experiments like Robert Nozick's experience machine, you're asked if you would plug into a machine that could simulate perfect happiness, even though it's not real. Most people say no. There is something in us that recoils at the idea of perfection at the cost of freedom and truth. The perfect world. Prison makes this philosophical question visceral, because the moment you realize you can never leave, you discover what happiness really is. True happiness, you start to see, is not just about having what you want. It's about the freedom to choose, to risk, to fail, to leave. Happiness is sharpened by struggle, made precious by uncertainty. It's not the endless fulfillment of every desire, but the journey, the story of becoming, of changing, of seeking something beyond your grasp. Some might argue, isn't a life without pain better? But ask yourself, would you rather win a game you always win or play one where you could lose? Would you rather watch a movie where you know every twist or be surprised, even scared by the unknown? The sweetness of life, it turns out, comes from the shadows that threaten it. Without the possibility of loss, victory is meaningless. Without the risk of heartbreak, love is empty. Without the door, even paradise becomes a prison. In the perfect world prison, time itself becomes your tormentor. At first, you try to escape by seeking more and more stimulation. New experiences, new flavors, new illusions. But the room is still a room, no matter how beautiful. And deep down, you know you are not free. Even if the walls are made of gold, you are still behind them. The human spirit, wired for challenge, for risk, for meaning, starts to wither. And so, trapped in this velvet cage, you begin to understand a fundamental truth. Happiness is not the absence of suffering, but the presence of purpose. It is not the endless fulfillment of desire, but the pursuit of something uncertain, something real. You would trade every perfect day, every easy comfort, for a single moment of raw, unpredictable life beyond the walls. Now imagine the twist. What if this room is your real life, and you just haven't seen the walls yet? What if the comforts you chase, the routines you build, the safety you crave, are just softer cages? Distractions from the possibility of real, dangerous, beautiful freedom? The perfect world prison is not just a thought experiment, it's a mirror held up to our lives. It asks, are you living in a cage of comfort? Have you traded meaning for security, risk for routine, growth for predictability? If so, what would you give to break free? And as you contemplate that final, haunting question, the truth lingers. Sometimes the cost of comfort is the very thing that makes happiness possible. The open door, the uncertainty, the freedom to leave. Would you choose the perfect prison or the imperfect world outside? The answer is yours, if you can ever find the exit. Eternal observer thought. Imagine for a moment that there is a silent presence in your life. It does not interfere. It does not whisper guidance in your ear, nor does it shield you from pain or point you toward happiness. It is only there to watch, to see everything. Every joy, every mistake, every fear you never voiced, every secret you never dared to write down. This is the eternal observer, a consciousness whose entire existence is dedicated to witnessing your story, moment by moment, but who is forever forbidden to intervene, to reach out, to change even a single atom of your fate. If such a being existed, would they be a prisoner, or the only one truly free? Would they be powerless, or the only one who knows truth? To understand the depth of this thought experiment, let's strip away all the comforting illusions we have about privacy, secrecy, and the boundaries of the self. Most people live with the belief that there are moments, thoughts, and memories that belong only to them. Private, unspoken fragments that die in the darkness behind closed eyes. But if there were an eternal witness, these shadows would be illuminated. Every fleeting emotion, every forgotten childhood memory, every unconscious habit, seen, known, remembered. Not just in passing, but with perfect clarity, as if each instant was carved in stone. Think of your most vulnerable moment, the time you broke down in tears, alone, thinking no one saw you. Imagine that moment replayed, not with judgment, but with absolute attention. No detail missed, no feeling ignored. The observer remembers it all: the trembling of your hands, the reason for your sorrow, the hope you almost lost but clung to for one more day. Suddenly, even your loneliness isn't entirely yours anymore. Is that comforting? Or does it make you feel more exposed than ever before? But the observer is not a judge. They do not reward or punish. They are not God, not a guardian angel, not the voice of fate. Their power is in perception, pure, uninterrupted awareness. And that power is both infinite and, in another sense, absolutely powerless. For what is knowledge if you can do nothing with it? What is it to understand the depth of someone's suffering, but never be able to reach through the glass and offer a hand? Let's take this further. Imagine you lived your whole life never knowing that you were being watched. Does it change you? Maybe not at first. But what if one day you felt it, the sense that someone somewhere truly sees you, not as you appear to others, but as you are, in your rawest, most unedited form? Would you live differently, knowing your life was a story being archived by a consciousness that could never intervene or influence you in any way? Some philosophers have played with this idea, not as a mystical or religious belief, but as a way to ask what it really means to be seen, and what it means to be alone. The ancient Greeks spoke of the gods who watched but rarely interfered, their tragedies born from the knowledge that even the most desperate prayers might only ever be observed, not answered. In more modern times, neuroscientists talk about the inner witness, that voice in your head that narrates your experience, the silent commentator who watches but never acts. Is this inner narrator you, or is it a fragment of something deeper, a window into a more universal kind of awareness? Let's look at an example. Imagine a child growing up in a chaotic home, never feeling truly noticed or valued. They draw pictures, write stories, dream of being understood. In their darkest moments, they imagine an invisible friend, a being who sees and understands, even if they never speak. This imagined witness gives them the strength to endure. As adults, many people remember this feeling, the longing for someone to know them so completely, to witness their private pain without judgment. In therapy, sometimes the deepest healing comes from simply having someone listen, someone who observes with compassion without fixing or changing anything. But what if the observer cannot even provide comfort? What if they are bound to silence, unable to ever let you know that you have been seen? Are they powerless? Or are they the only one who knows you as you truly are? Imagine a courtroom where you are on trial for your whole life, and the only jury is this eternal witness. They have perfect memory, perfect understanding. No one else will ever hear their verdict, not even you. The story of your life is theirs alone to know, and that knowledge is both a burden and a gift. This idea is not just philosophical. In literature and film, the motif of the silent observer haunts many stories. In George Orwell's 1984, Big Brother watches, but that gaze is oppressive, manipulative, and political. Here, the observer is the opposite. They do not manipulate, do not shape events, but they see with perfect clarity. The question becomes, is meaning found in action, or is it found in perception? If a tragedy unfolds in front of someone who cannot act, does their knowledge of it change its meaning? Some might say the observer is cursed, condemned to a life of endless passivity, to see injustice and never stop it, to witness love but never feel it. But another perspective is possible. The observer is the only being who knows the full truth, who holds the complete record, unclouded by self-delusion or denial. For they have all knowledge, but no agency. They are like the audience of a play who can never step onto the stage. Think about your own life. How much of what you do is shaped by being seen by others? We act differently when watched, by friends, by strangers, even by the impersonal gaze of a camera. Now, imagine a watcher who sees not just your actions, but the motives behind them, the fears you try to hide, the dreams you never voice aloud. Would that knowledge change you, or would it only matter if the observer could act? Some might argue that life itself is a kind of performance, shaped by invisible audiences, by our ancestors, by society, by imagined gods, by future generations reading our diaries. The eternal observer is the ultimate audience, silent, patient, knowing, but unable to applaud or boo or even look away. You are, in a sense, performing for an audience of one, a being who will never reveal their presence, but who holds your story in perfect clarity. Is that a prison, or is it a kind of freedom? If no one can ever eye the rest of us, memory is patchy, self-serving, unreliable. We forget our mistakes, rewrite our own history, invent new stories to protect our fragile sense of self. The observer, by contrast, knows everything as it really happened. Perhaps, in some cosmic sense, the only true meaning is in being fully seen, even if only by a single silent witness. In science fiction, there are stories of cosmic beings who watch universes evolve but never interfere. Their knowledge is absolute, but their hands are tied. The Greek gods sometimes envied mortals for their ability to feel, to choose, to act, even if it brought suffering. The observer, in this sense, is both the most powerful and most powerless being imaginable. The photo that moves. Imagine this. Someone hands you a photograph. It's you. There's no doubt, your hair, your clothes, that little scar on your eyebrow. But something is wrong. In the photo, your eyes are half closed, mid-blink, the faintest blur, caught between frames. You stare harder, heart pounding, because you don't remember anyone taking this photo. You can't remember standing there, wearing those clothes, blinking in that moment. The more you look, the stranger it feels. You see the impossible, a photo that seems to move. Your eyes droop shut, then snap open again. Your face shifts, just barely, just for a second, as if the image is alive. Panic prickles under your skin. Was it edited? Some cruel trick? A digital effect? A prank by a friend? You ask around, nobody knows anything. The file has no timestamp, no metadata, no camera make or model. The shadows are real, the light is perfect. Your posture is unmistakably natural. This isn't a selfie or a staged shot. It's as if someone snapped a moment that should never have existed. Now the mind spins. Is this proof of time travel? Did someone from the future reach back and capture you in a secret, forgotten instant? Or is it something even darker? Something that breaks the fragile line between memory and reality? You try to remember that day, but the details slip away like water through your fingers. Did you ever stand in that spot? Did you ever own those shoes? The uncertainty becomes its own kind of nightmare. If a photo exists of a moment you can't recall, did it ever really happen? Or has the universe stitched a new memory into your life? A memory you'll never truly own. Think about how photos usually work. They are frozen moments, proof that you were there, that the world was as you remember. But what happens when the photo moves? What happens when the evidence itself shifts and blinks, denying you the safety of certainty? Is this just a glitch of technology, or a glitch in reality itself? Imagine for a moment that the photo is real, untouched, unaltered, a perfect slice of time you never lived. What could explain it? Time travel? Parallel universes, where every possible moment is lived by another you? Or something darker, a world where reality itself is being edited, where your own memories cannot be trusted, where the record of your life can be rewritten without your consent. You search your other photos, desperate for a clue. You find snapshots from the same day, same clothes, same location. But none match the feeling of that moving image. The others are still lifeless, ordinary. Only this photo blinks. Only this photo breathes. The feeling lingers long after you close your eyes. What if, in some hidden layer of reality, your life is being watched, recorded, tampered with? What if every memory you have is just a story told to keep you sane? A story that can be revised at any moment, leaving you stranded in someone else's narrative. Now, imagine you show the photo to others. Some see the movement. Some don't. A few glance at it and swear it's a normal image, nothing special, while others gasp, certain they've seen your eyelids flutter. Reality becomes subjective, each witness creating their own version of the truth. The photo is both proof and paradox, an object that refuses to stay still, a relic from a moment that can't be real. You wonder if you're the only one being watched, or if everyone has a photo like this. Proof of a world where the boundaries blur, where time stutters, where selfhood is nothing but a series of shifting images. Are you a time traveler, a pawn, or just a victim of a deeper, more terrifying game? You think about dreams, those vivid scenes that feel real, then dissolve at dawn. What if life itself is a dream, and the photo is the glitch, the error message, the crack in the code? What if there's something or someone watching you from the other side of the lens, editing, pausing, rewinding, replacing your memories with moments you never lived. In the end, the photo that moves is a question you cannot answer. It's a riddle that whispers at the edges of your sanity. You are left with only uncertainty, haunted by the possibility that you are more fragile, more malleable, more mysterious than you ever dared to believe. And so, you tuck the photo away, never quite able to forget. Every time you close your eyes, you wonder, what else have I forgotten? What else is waiting in the darkness, blinking, alive, and watching me back? Ship of Theseus. Puzzle. Imagine standing before a ship, weathered by centuries, each plank replaced one by one as rot claimed the old wood. Sailors swapped broken boards for new ones, slowly, carefully, never all at once. Years pass. Eventually, not a single original piece remains. Yet the ship keeps its name, its purpose, its story. They still call it the Ship of Theseus. Now, step back. What exactly is this ship? Is it the same vessel that launched into mythic seas, or is it a stranger wearing the same skin? Can you point to the moment when it stopped being what it was and became something new? Now, shift that question, uncomfortably, onto yourself. Every cell in your body is replaced over time. Bones renew themselves. Your skin sheds and regrows. Even the atoms in your brain swap out for fresh ones, as old molecules drift away and new ones arrive. Decade after decade, nothing remains from the original. Are you still the same person? Or are you, like the Ship of Theseus, just a name floating atop an ocean of ever-changing parts? Let's go deeper. Suppose that, in a brilliant but haunting experiment, scientists could replace every part of your body with something new. One eye, then the other. A hand, then an arm. Piece by piece, heart, lungs, liver, even your brain. Neurons swapped with artificial ones that work exactly the same, firing in the same patterns, holding the same memories. At the end, a perfect replica stands before the mirror, looking back with your eyes, speaking in your voice. Not a single atom of the original you remains. Who stands in the reflection? Is it still you, or is your soul just pretending to fit inside a new scaffolding, faking continuity, desperate to believe it survived the process? This is not just philosophical play. It's a crisis at the core of identity. If everything physical about you can change, what is the unchanging you that persists through the years? Is it memory? But memories are just patterns, and patterns can be copied. Is it your personality, your quirks, your habits? But those are shaped by biology and environment, both of which shift as you do. Or is there something else, something unnameable, that clings to your story even as the details change? To understand the grip of this puzzle, let's look at real-world analogies. Consider a beloved family home. Over decades, you repaint the walls, replace windows, redo the floors. Maybe you add rooms, change the roof, knock down a wall. When does it stop being the same house? When does it become something new? Or take your childhood teddy bear, its fur worn away, an eye missing, stitches holding it together. Is it still your bear, or is it just a collection of cloth and stuffing masquerading as your old friend? The answer feels obvious, and yet impossible. Now, imagine a darker experiment. Suppose every part of your body is replaced, not at once, but gradually, over years. You are in an accident, and a hand is lost, replaced with a prosthetic. Then, a heart transplant. Later, as medicine advances, new organs are grown in a lab and swapped in as your own fail. Eventually, technology allows replacement of your failing brain cells with artificial neurons, each mapped perfectly to your original thoughts and memories. Decades pass. Not a single original cell remains, but your mind and your story, your loves and fears persist. You remember your first heartbreak, your favorite song, the taste of your mother's cooking. Are you still you, or have you become a convincing imitation, a soul wearing a mask of memory? And what if the process happened differently? What if, as each old part is removed, someone collects them and reassembles them elsewhere? The old wood from the Ship of Theseus is put together to make a second ship. Now, there are two, one with all the original pieces, one with the history and continuity of repair. Which is the real ship? Which is the real you? The body made of your original atoms, now lifeless? or the living, thinking being with none of the original matter, but all the continuity of experience? Science fiction and philosophy alike have wrestled with this question. In the world of Star Trek, the transporter breaks you down into atoms and reassembles you elsewhere. The you that arrives is made of new matter, reconstructed from a pattern. Did you die in transit? Is the copy on the other side truly you, or a ghost with your memories, your voice, your hopes and fears, but not your soul? And here's where the puzzle gets unsettling. Neuroscience shows that the sense of a single, unified self is an illusion, a story the brain tells itself to hold together the chaos of perception, memory, and emotion. Your self is constantly changing, adapting, reshaping in response to trauma, growth, love, and loss. The person you were at 10 is not the person you are now, not in thought, not in feeling, not in matter. Yet you feel seamless, continuous, like a single thread running through time. But if your cells can be swapped and your thoughts reassembled, what anchors you to the you of tomorrow? Is it the persistence of memory? But memories can be lost, altered, erased by disease or accident. Is it the body? But the body is in flux, always rebuilding itself, always dying and being born. Is it something deeper, something ineffable, a soul, a spark, a ghost in the machine? Or is it all just scaffolding and your consciousness a story pretending to be a constant, when in truth it's a flickering illusion, always on the verge of vanishing and being replaced? Let's take a real example. Meet Claire. At 20, she's vivacious, curious, ambitious. She survives a terrible accident, and her body is rebuilt. New heart, new skin, bone grafts. Over decades, new medical advances mean more and more of her body is replaced. By 80, nothing of the original Claire remains, not a single cell. But her family, her friends, and even Claire herself insist she is the same person. Her laugh is the same, her stories are the same. But is she the same? Or have they been tricked by the continuity of memory and habit, fooled by the unbroken thread of identity that's really just a carefully patched quilt? This is where the ship of Theseus puzzle reveals its sharpest edge. It's not about planks or organs or atoms. It's about the fear that our sense of self is paper thin, held together by habit and hope. That our souls, if they exist at all, are malleable, stretchable, able to survive the loss of everything except the belief in themselves. Ask yourself, if every part of your body were swapped for something new, would you still be you? Or would something subtle and vital be lost in the transition, impossible to reclaim? Is the soul, if such a thing exists, anchored to matter or to memory or to something else entirely? Or is it simply a story that consciousness tells itself as it leaps from moment to moment, desperate for the comfort of continuity? There's no final answer. Some say the soul is immutable, untouched by the tides of biology. Others say you are nothing but pattern, and as long as the pattern persists, so do you. Some claim identity is a social contract. If those around you believe you are you, then you are. Others claim identity is only a fleeting illusion, and all we have are the ripples we leave behind. But maybe, just maybe, the answer doesn't matter as much as the question. Maybe the true power of the ship of Theseus puzzle is that it forces us to stare into the deep waters of identity and ask, what makes me, me? Is it body, mind, soul, memory, or something far stranger? A synthesis, a process, a fleeting arrangement of light and sound and sensation. In the end, you are like the ship, changed, rebuilt, weathered by time, and yet, somehow, still you. Or at least, still the story of you, told again and again, across new planks, new days, new cells, an ancient puzzle that haunts every mirror, every memory, every heartbeat.